Ta-da! Here we are, and we are in the pre-show. It's the pre-show right now. We're going to be live in a couple minutes, but this is the pre-show. You've tuned in early. Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to check on a couple of things here. It looks like, yeah, we're fine. Everything's good. Oh, you know what? I have to change this. I do have to change this to 48 kilohertz. And then Safari, check 1, 2. Let's see what Safari's doing. There we go. Just checking, make one. All right, we are good for audio. Everything's good for the audio. I'm going to check on a few things. I'm going to turn that down so I don't think that's not distracting. And then we're going to talk about the Apple event coming up Tuesday at a very odd time, very strange time, 7 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. In the meantime, let's just do this. And yeah. So we're going to talk about the Apple event on Tuesday morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, which is very, very strange. Very strange time. And we're going to talk about Final Cut Pro and some other things, the new iPad Pro and things. But we'll be back. We'll be back in a minute. We'll be back. 3 minutes. 3 minutes, we'll be back. Ta-da! Here we are again. Another Final Cut TV and Coffee, another Saturday morning on the good old East Coast of the USA. And as you can see, it's rainy out here in the backyard. Well, you really can't see it's rainy, but it's May the 4th. It's pretty rainy out there. Pretty darn rainy. So, we already got our first comments. Movie systems audio. Very good. We got our first comments. We got our thumbs up. Here's our first comment. Good morning, Rich. This is going to be fun talk since the new iPhone 15 Pro Max really think these new iPads are going to be more exciting than the iPhones. Still, it remains to be seen what they reveal on May the 7th. The weird thing about May the 7th, first off, Apple rarely does an event in May. They don't do events in May. They do events in March and April, September, October, sometimes November. So that's the other weird, odd things. So we have our first comments here. Good morning from Jamaica. Very good. Good morning from Brazil, our friend Marcelo. May the 4th be with you from Berlin, Germany. And then good morning from Denmark. Here we go. And good morning from Finland, or good afternoon, good evening. Good evening from Finland. Worldwide Final Cut Pro audience. I say this all the time, but that's what we got. Worldwide. So there's a couple of odd things that are happening. With this event that they're having. Oh, look at that. We got a blackbird hanging upside down for the suet. So we have an Apple event on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, 7 o'clock Pacific in the morning. 7 o'clock in the morning. Why is it 7 o'clock in the morning? It's okay with me. It's 10 o'clock Eastern. So 10 o'clock in the morning is completely fine with me. I don't have to wait all day. Everybody knows there's going to be a new Apple Pencil, 3rd generation. Everybody knows there's going to be iPad Pro, a new iPad Pro with whatever. There are some things that I'd like to see. I'm going to check on. First off, I'm going to check over here. See, we've got comments from Facebook. We got comments from YouTube. Let me go over here. First post this. There we go. And then I'm going to go over to, let me see. Let me go over here. I'm going to do my typical post from X. Post. Let me see if that comes in okay. I don't see it yet. Huh. I don't see it yet. That's okay. We don't have to worry about that. It should. I think I'm in the right place. I think I'm in the right place. Because I have two different ways that I monitor X. One is X. Oh, that's interesting. It says twitter.com. Huh. Do I need to put x.com? No, it went back to twitter.com. So twitter.com, it's not coming through. It's not coming through. Huh. I think we're live. Let me see if we're live where we're supposed to be. Thank you for the thumbs up already. That's that. Let me see what's going on here. Yeah. We got 5 people watching over there on Twitter. Streaming. Yeah. Okay. We got more people watching on Twitter than we do on Facebook. That doesn't seem right. Yeah. Okay, we're live on Twitter, but for some reason, let me try this again. Post, see if it comes through. Oops, you already said that. Okay, but it's not, I don't see it showing up. That's all right. No big deal. If you're in Twitter, if you're on Twitter X, some of your comments are not going to get through properly. So that's fine. Happy Star Wars Day. That's right. The fourth be with you. May the fourth be with you. That's a little play on words, of course. From the Force be with you. So here's the comment. Tuesday, new iPad announced. Thursday, release of Final Cut Pro 10.7.2, I hope. No, I think it'll be announced the same day as the iPads. I don't think they're going to wait till Thursday. I think what they're going to do is they're going to announce the new iPad Pro, and they're going to say, what better way to use an iPad Pro than this new version of Final Cut for iPad that we have? Just came out this morning. So I expect, once again, will I place a bet on it? Maybe a cup of coffee. I'm fairly confident we're going to see 10.7.2 on Tuesday, but I wouldn't make a $100 bet on that. No way. Here's the thing. Okay, 6 months ago they released 10.7, November the 30th. Since then, we haven't seen any feature update to Final Cut Pro. 6 months. We had 10.7.1 came out on December the 21st, bug fix only. So, new iPad Pro, maybe with the M4 chip. I've seen both pros and cons about the M4 chip. Some people say M4, some people say M3. Mark Gruber even is going back and forth. He thinks maybe the M4 chip. If they do the M4 chip, this will be the first time that they've announced a new M chip on an iPad before a Mac. But it makes sense because the M4 is the future AI chip, supposedly. Reasons why I might be interested. I had the 11-inch, but I returned this one better, be more sensitive, software ready to gate. We have developers working on new software that's not going to get it for me. Well, I've been talking about, so there's a couple of things that have changed since the last week. Number one, Apple stock has gone through the roof. They had their announcement about their, earnings report, and afterwards stock jumped 10, 15 points. It's way up. So I'm an Apple stockholder, so I can now afford a MacBook Pro. So that's cool. They really haven't updated the iPad version of Final Cut Pro since it was launched last year. They updated it when 10.7 came out in November the 30th, right? Yeah. They updated the iPad version at the same time. So when they update the iPad version and the Mac version, they pretty much happened at the same time. So they had the new iPad version on November the 30th. I'm sorry. Yeah, it came out on November the 30th, the same time that we got 10.7. They're not going to really update one and not the other. They're going to be somewhat synchronized, especially with the big feature update. So I'm just saying, new iPad Pro, of course they'll show some graphic stuff, new pencil. Maybe they'll show, no, they probably won't show Luma Fusion. That's too much in competition. They might show Luma Fusion. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. Appreciate it. They might show Luma Fusion for the iPad. I don't know, but I don't think so because it's kind of direct competition for Final Cut for iPad. But then again, they might. Luma Fusion got 2 awards from Apple before Final Cut for iPad came out, so they very well might show Luma Fusion. What else are they going to show on a new iPad Pro? Word? I don't think so. Safari? Yeah. Faury's old hat. That's no big deal. They're going to show Final Cut for iPad, a new version of Final Cut for iPad. It's been 6 months since 10.7. It makes complete sense that they would show off the new iPad with a new version of Final Cut. If they have a new version of Final Cut for iPad, they most certainly are going to have a new version of Final Cut for the Mac. They're not going to do one and not the other. They're going to do both at the same time. That's why I think we're going to see 10.7.2 on Tuesday. And probably Tuesday morning. And it's going to have some features in it. Whatever they are, I have no idea. I know what I'd like for them to be. I'd like for them to be text-based editing and auto-captioning. That's what I'd like to see. We already got the scrolling timeline. (10.7.2) next week with some feature updates. Absolutely, it's not going to be a bug fix. 10.7.5 this September with lots of AI feature in conjunction with the OS upgrade. Maybe, I would think there'll be an update Tuesday, and the next big feature update will be at the Creative Summit next November. That's what I'm saying. The Creative Summit 2024 has not been announced yet. I'm not saying it's been announced, but I'm counting on it. In Cupertino, maybe back at the Juniper Hotel. That's what I'm hoping. I'm wondering why they put iPad Final Cut Pro 2 subscription. Are they testing the waters for Final Cut desktop subscription? Only if it's an option. The reason they did the iPad version, thank you very much for the thumbs up. The reason they did the iPad version is for subscription because that's the lower end entry point to Final Cut Pro. They don't need Final Cut Pro on the Mac to be a low-end entry point. Now, we've talked about this all the time. Final Cut subscription for the Mac is okay if it's an option, not if it's the only way to go for a new version of Final Cut. Nobody minds. Final Cut Pro team listens to this broadcast. Let's give a round of applause to the Final Cut Pro team. Final Cut Pro team knows going subscription only would be a problem. They would get a lot of flack. Now, a new version of Final Cut is in the works. Final Cut 11, let's call it. Whatever they call it, that's what I'm calling it. They said at the Creative Summit they have plans for Final Cut for the next 4, 5, 6 years. Obviously, that's going to be Final Cut Pro 11. That's not going to be Final Cut Pro 10.9.9. 4 to 5 years in the future is Final Cut 11. So they're already working on that most likely. But nobody minds, Final Cut Pro team, listen to this. Nobody minds a subscription option. Okay, nobody minds that option. Nobody also minds if you give us a perpetual license to a new version of Final Cut and say, okay, this version of Final Cut will always work for you because you've paid the perpetual license. It'll always work. However, future updates past 2 years, this will only get you updates for 2 years, just as an example. That's fine. Just don't make the app stop working if we don't pay the subscription anymore. That's all. The way you do with the iPad version. Now, the iPad version is an exception to my not liking subscriptions because it's so inexpensive. It is so inexpensive. $4.99 a month is completely reasonable. I can pay for it for 1 month, not pay for it the next month, not pay for it for 2 months. Resubscribe. It's simple to do with Apple. In your iCloud account, you can just subscribe and unsubscribe. It's very easy to do. But don't do that with Final Cut. Final Cut is professional. On the Mac is a professional version. Don't be messing with professionals with stupid subscriptions. I think you know that. I would not mind a subscription option for collaboration between Final Cut Pro editors, but no subscription for standalone editors. Yeah, it's an option. Option we don't mind is an option. Just don't cram it down our throats. And while we're at it, give us the option to buy the iPad version. Give us an option to buy a perpetual license for iPad, Final Cut for iPad, rather than this constant. This is the developers and Final Cut, Apple, everybody, all the people that make apps. This is what it feels like with subscriptions. Never ending, all over the place, dozens and dozens of subscriptions. I don't like subscriptions that don't give us a service. Ecamm Live I'm using now. That gives me a service to stream to 3 different platforms. That's ongoing, and as you know, I send them one stream, they stream it out to YouTube, to Facebook, and to X. That's a service. That's an ongoing service they have to pay for. I don't mind that kind of subscription. Don't mind it at all. By the way, who's got coffee this morning, this afternoon? Nobody minds that. Nobody absolutely minds that. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. Good thumbs up. Here's thumbs down for subscriptions for the Mac version. Absolutely thumbs down for that. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. Another thumbs up. It's fantastic. We just got started. We already got thumbs up, bunch of thumbs up. Lots of people watching. Very, very cool. So it's interesting. I can click up here and I can see who's watching on which platform. So YouTube has the most. X, believe it or not, X has the second most. X has more viewers than Facebook. That's amazing to me. Usually Facebook has a lot of viewers, but this time it's X. X and YouTube. Fantastic. Maybe the Facebook viewers, maybe they're not being registered properly, because usually there's a lot of people on Facebook. Professionals can use iPads. Absolutely. I didn't mean to say that. What's not pro? Well, here's the problem. How do I hook up my 64 terabyte RAID to an iPad? Can't do it. Can't do it. Professionals have large storage. They have hardware RAIDs. This is just one example. Okay? How do I hook up my 64 terabyte RAID 5 to an iPad? Can't do it. Can't do it. How do I use my thousands, and I mean literally thousands, of plugins that I bought for iPad, for my Mac version of Final Cut Pro? You can't do it on the iPad. Those are two examples of gigantic things that you can't do on the iPad. Final Cut on the iPad was meant as an entry-level way to get into the iPad, into Final Cut. Can you use it in a professional setting? Of course you can. If all you have is an iPad, you will figure out ways, and you can cut on an iPad in a professional setting. But I just gave you two examples of what you can't do on the iPad. You can't hook up to my RAIDs, where all my storage is, my video, and you can't use the thousands of Final Cut Pro plugins that I have on my Mac version. Those are two big downsides to using that. So that's what I'm saying, Pro. It's definitely Final Cut Junior. It's Final Cut Junior. It's not Final Cut like the Mac version. And it's not to put it down. It's just accepting the facts. That's what it is in reality. It's missing features that Final Cut for iPad has. Does that make it less professional? It makes it a step down from the Mac version. That's all I'm saying. Can you do professional work on Final Cut for iPad? Of course you can. Of course you can. Especially if that's all you have is the iPad. That's what you use. That's what you use. They said support for third-party plugins are coming to Final Cut for the iPad. iPad versions of the plugins, not Mac versions of the plugins. Let's make that distinction. They meant third-party iPad versions of plugins, not porting over Mac versions of plugins. I have thousands, literally 2,000 plugins for my Mac. I can't use them on the iPad, and I use them all the time on my Mac. And I'm hooked up to my 56 terabyte, it's actually 56 terabyte RAID 5, 64 terabyte RAW. I can't hook that up to the iPad. It's a step, it would be very restrictive for me to go to the iPad as my full time. If I'm on the subway and I want to edit some stuff, I might do a short videos on the iPad with an external drive. Good morning. I set my alarm so I'd not miss your show. Coffee in hand. Very, very good. Coffee in hand. Very, very cool. So, Final Cut for iPad. Listen, if all you have is an iPad, you don't have a MacBook Pro or any other kind of Mac, I would absolutely use it. It's very cool. It's a very cool implementation. Personally, here's my deal. I had a 2019 Mac Pro. I bought one. It was about $9,000 some dollars. I sold it for half of that. I've kept that money that I sold it for in an envelope. It says Mac Pro, 2019 Mac Pro. That is the money that I have set aside to buy a new MacBook Pro. However, when I priced the new MacBook Pro, even now with the M3 chip, it's over $5,000. First off, I'm probably going to get an 8 terabyte SSD this time. The 4 terabyte's been really good, but I do so much work on my internal SSD that I'm going to go bite the bullet and get the 8 terabyte version. It's probably going to be $5,500, maybe approaching $6,000 for the one that I want. I said, hold on there, Tim. Too much money. I'm not buying the M2. I'm not buying the M3. We'll see what's going on with the M4. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to jump on it the first day. If I get the M4, we'll have to see what's going on. If they announce an M4 at WWDC and say, hey, the new MacBook M4 is coming out this year, I'll probably wait till that comes out before I do any more expenditure on my Mac. Probably. But I'm very, very tempted to get the new iPad Pro. I haven't even seen it yet. But I'm still very tempted to get the new iPad Pro when it's announced on Tuesday. There's a couple of things that I really like about especially if it's an M4, it's even more tempting. It's an M3, that's last year's technology. M4, I'm very interested. Now, here's what I like to see. I'm not saying they're going to have this. I like to see 2 Thunderbolt ports on the iPad Pro. 2. I can plug one into storage and one into audio or whatever else I want to do. So I'd like to see 2 Thunderbolt ports. I'm not saying they're going to do that. Just what I like to see is 2. I'm glad that they're putting the camera on the horizontal rather than the vertical. That's important too if we're live streaming and stuff. In 2018, Steven Soderbergh, a top Hollywood director, shot his movie Unsane, entitled using an iPhone 7 Plus. All the stuff about Discovery and BBC standards that I read about is utter nonsense. It's not utter nonsense. Entirely not entitled. Yes. So here's the thing. You don't have to convince me about shooting on an iPhone. You don't have to convince me at all. I shoot on an iPhone. It's my main camera. I have a Lumix S5 Mark IIX, full frame, fantastic camera, shoots in 6K, but I don't want to bring that with me all the time. This I have with me all the time. The quality is superb. You don't have to sell me on shooting a movie with an iPhone. That's not the point. The point is that the Mac version of Final Cut and the iPad version are not equal, okay? The iPad version of Final Cut is missing 40 features by my count that the Mac version has. So the iPad version is an entry-level version of Final Cut, which is one of the reasons they put it on a $4.99, $5 a month subscription for people that didn't want to pay $300 for Final Cut for iPad. This is the entry-level version of Final Cut. It's not as powerful as the Mac version. Okay, I've just told you two exact reasons. What am I doing with my plugins? Well, how am I going to connect my RAIDs? Can't do it with the iPad version. As far as the basic power of the iPad version, let me just pull this up. Let me see. Where is that? I'm trying to figure what site that's on. Let me see if it's on here. Let me just check on something. Here we go. So let's look at this. People don't realize this. They're not equal. Let's look at this. Feature parity checklist, Final Cut Pro versus Final Cut for iPad. You might be surprised. There's 40 missing features on the iPad version. Differences between Final Cut Pro and Final Cut for iPad. No editing off external hard drives. Subscription only. No white balance. No stabilization. No color board, color wheels, color curves, use saturation curves. Only one scope at a time. No multiple scopes. No audio sub-rolls. Only 3 audio rolls. Only 1 video roll. No optimized media, etc., etc., etc. This is my list of things that Final Cut for iPad does not have. Now, the missing features of Final Cut Pro that the iPad has: can't draw on screen or use Apple Pencil, no jog wheel, no Pro camera, should be native with the camera app, no auto crop, no limited 40 soundtracks. So 40 features are missing from the iPad version of Final Cut from the Mac version. Okay, 40 features. So it's definitely a step down from the Mac version. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Nitro cold brew plus dash of heavy cream, smooth and sexy. You're close to what I have. So here's the deal. I have these giant coffee scoops, and I put 2 scoops for 1 cup of coffee. So it's almost like espresso. By the way, it's not espresso. There's no X in espresso, espresso. I put 2 scoops in here for 1 cup, and then I hit it with heavy cream to help smooth out the flavor. It tastes like hot chocolate almost. Now, here's the thing. I talked about my MacBook Pro. I'd like to get another MacBook Pro. I'm not getting the M2 or M3. It's too much money. It's $5,000 or $6,000. It's going to have to last me for a few years. If they pre-announce, well, first off, I'm not in a hurry to get anything, okay? I got my M1 Max MacBook Pro. It's working fine. It's very portable. I take it with me on a plane if I want to edit. But at some point, I'm going to get a new MacBook Pro. It's not going to be the M2 or the M3, so I'm waiting for the M4. But here's the deal with my MacBook Pro purchase. It's got to have Thunderbolt 5. I'm not spending $5,000, $6,000 on a MacBook Pro that doesn't have the latest technology. I don't want Thunderbolt 4. That's from years ago. It's years old. I want Thunderbolt 5. That's one of the things that I want. Other than that, I don't really care, but it's got to have Thunderbolt 5. Will the M4 chip have Thunderbolt 5? Don't know. I do not know. Let's go look at this real quick. I'm going to look at this graphic. So I've made this graphic. If you can see, Tim Cook is saying one more thing. Now. Hold on a second. Let me pull this up. Cam link. Let me pull this on so you can see me talking to you. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Now, here's the deal. Okay. But he's saying one more thing. Look under his left arm. Final Cut Pro 10.7.2 is just underneath his left arm. So the idea is Final Cut Pro 10.7.2 is not going to be a major announcement. That's not what the event is. They're not doing a May event to announce Final Cut Pro 10.7.2. It's a sidecar announcement to the event. It's a sidecar to a new version of Final Cut for the iPad being announced along with the new iPad Pro. How in the world could you possibly put out a new iPad Pro with perhaps the M4 chip and not showcase a new version of Final Cut Pro on it? Doesn't make sense. Of course that's what they're going to do. That's my opinion. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. Now, if they introduce a new version of Final Cut for iPad, of course they're going to introduce a new version of Final Cut for the Mac. Just makes sense. This is detective work on my part. My last laptop was bought in 2012 besides my work machine, so I went all on the M3 MacBook Pro. I'm good for a long while, I hope. No, absolutely. If I needed a MacBook Pro in 2024 or 2023, the M3 is fantastic. I'm just saying I don't need one because I have my 2021 M1 Max, got Max everything except for the SSD. But this time I will get the 8 terabyte SSD. I've already made my mind up. The 4 terabyte SSD is so fast. And I work off the internal SSD for all kinds of stuff, especially Final Cut Pro projects. I'm going to get the 8 terabyte. I've already made my mind up. So that's going to raise the price another $1,000 or $800 or whatever else it is. Absolutely. But I'm just saying, my dilemma is this. Especially if they have a 4 terabyte iPad Pro. I mean, not 4 terabyte, the M4 version of the iPad Pro. If they have the brand new M4 chip inside the iPad Pro, I'm probably going to get it. I'm probably going to get it at that point. If it has 2 Thunderbolt ports, phenomenal. Especially Thunderbolt 5. That would be phenomenal. That'd be very tempting for me to get. And if I get the iPad Pro, then I'm going to hold off a little longer on a MacBook Pro. That's all. In other words, I'm not going to buy the iPad Pro on day one. There's no reason for me. I'm not going anywhere I don't need it. But they go on sale. I see them on sale on Amazon and other places constantly. Not on day one, but after day one. So I very likely will get, the odds of me getting an iPad Pro are at least 50 or 60%. And if I get the iPad Pro, and I'll get the biggest one, if I get the iPad Pro, I won't be jumping on and buying the MacBook Pro. If I hold off on the iPad Pro, I might look towards getting the M4 MacBook Pro with Thunderbolt 5. It's got to have Thunderbolt 5. I'm not interested in buying technology that's a year or more old. Went with 4 terabyte, $129 28 gigabytes of RAM, AI testing, video editing, etc. Absolutely. I have the 4 terabyte now, and it's been fine. I've been manageable, but I'm figuring if I'm spending $5,000 on a new MacBook Pro, I'm just going to spring for the 8 terabyte SSD because I edit off this thing internally all the time, smaller projects, 1 gigabyte or less. So having more options to do that is fantastic. So I edit off my SSD for small projects and then take it and dump it onto my RAID. And then I back it up with 2 separate hard drives and have a copy on my RAID. Were there any new camera releases at NAB? It seems as if the top manufacturers are focused on PTZ rather than new ENG production camcorders. Well, let me think. No, what about the Nikon and Red thing? I don't know about any new cameras. So I've seen some comments that said, oh, this NAB wasn't as good as the other ones. Well, it's almost the exact same amount of people, attendees, thank you very much for the thumbs up. Appreciate it. So 2023 NAB had 64,000, something like that, attendees. It had 1,000 exhibitors in 2023. 2024 had 6,100 and counting attendees. That might go up to 62,000. So the amount of attendees was about the same between 2023 and 2024. But the exhibitors went up by 300, almost 33%. In 2023, there were 1,000 exhibitors. In 2024, there were over 1,300 exhibitors. So the exhibitors went way up for 2024. The attendance is about the same, over 60,000. So what were the exciting things for me? I mean, Blackmagic, since there was no Final Cut Pro news, 0 Final Cut Pro news at NAB, 0. I saw one engineer from the Final Cut Pro team at the Michael Cioni's Strata event, but I didn't really know him to talk to him. He was actually kind of tall, my height or a little bit taller. I saw him there at the Strata event, but I didn't really get a chance to talk to him. The other people that I know in the Final Cut Pro team, I didn't see him anywhere. Nowhere. I was all over NAB. I went to all the parties and stuff. I didn't see him anywhere. Does that mean they weren't there? No, I know they were there. They're there every year. They're there every year. They're talking to developers, et cetera, et cetera. But there was no Final Cut Pro news, no guru gathering, no super meet where a lot of times we get together and stuff. None of that stuff. So I'm counting on Final Cut Pro 10.7.2 being announced on Tuesday with the iPad Pro. It would be unusual if they split that announcement up. I mean, they could show us a preview of Final Cut on the iPad on Tuesday. They could show us a preview and say, here's a future version of Final Cut for iPad. They could do that, but that's not as exciting as actually showing us the new version of Final Cut for iPad and demonstrating it on the new iPad Pro. So if the iPad Pro comes out, I'll be very tempted, especially if it had 2 Thunderbolt ports. That would be phenomenal. It has to have the ability to edit off of an SSD externally, not copying media internally, but actually live editing off the SSD. Now, I don't think you can do that in Final Cut yet for iPad, but you can in Luma Fusion. Luma Fusion can edit off of an external attached SSD. They've always been able to do that. I mean, for a long time, for years. So at this point, I would have no reason to subscribe to Final Cut on the iPad if I get an iPad. I might try it out, but really I have my MacBook Pro and I have Luma Fusion for the iPad. Those are really my top 2 things. I mean, will I try it out? Sure. Every time I see Final Cut for iPad, I'm impressed. When I saw it demonstrated at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, people that know what they're doing, I'm very, very impressed that they crammed all that stuff into an iPad. Now, something I will not think's going to happen is you're not going to see Final Cut for iPad on the iPhone. But I have Luma Fusion for Luma Fusion for the iPhone. Full version of Luma Fusion runs off the iPhone. Oh, by the way, Luma Fusion is on sale. This is something you want to pay attention to. Luma Fusion is on sale until May the 6th. 30% off. 30% off. Luma Fusion is on sale until May the 6th. 30% off. What happens on May the 7th? The Apple event with the new iPad Pros. So they stopped the sale one day before the Apple event announcement, the new iPad Pro announcement. Does that mean anything? It might. It might mean something. But just so you know, Luma Fusion's on sale for 30% off now until Monday, through Monday. It goes off sale 30%. You get Luma Fusion for $19. I don't care if you're never going to use it. Buy it for $19. Okay? Buy it for $19. Works on your phone, works on your iPad, works on the Mac. The iPad version of Luma Fusion runs on M1 Macs, Android phones, and Chromebooks. $19. It's brain dead simple. Spend the $19 and get it. I think what else is? I think multicam might be on sale as well. I'm not sure about that, but get Luma Fusion for $19. I don't care if you're not planning on using it this year. Just buy it. One-time purchase price, updates are free. They have version 5 coming out this summer with some new features. Do you think NAB did a better job engaging with creators? NAB always does a good, yes, they did a good job. They had a creator area on the upper south floor where Luma Fusion had their booth. Yes, creators are becoming more and more important to video production. When you have people that have millions, multi-millions of views on YouTube that the studios can't get. Creators are very, very important. I mean, look, I'm sitting here in my upstairs studio on the East Coast of the United States, and I'm broadcasting to the entire world. The entire world. Okay? Not just local. I'm broadcasting to the entire world. Okay? It's important. I love the ability to have a TV studio in my upstairs studio. I have a bigger studio downstairs. I've been getting that work. I'll move down there sometime eventually, but maybe not in the wintertime. It's too cold down there. I got to put the heat on separate from upstairs. Up here is no problem keeping it warm. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. So do I think NAB did a better job engaging with creators? Yes. They realized that creators are a very important part of broadcasting, video, audio, etc. Would make sense to demo Resolve or even Premiere on a new iPad Pro than Final Cut Pro for an iPad to get more customers to buy the iPad. No need to preach to the choir for the choir. But yeah, but there's a lot of people that don't have. There's perhaps 5 or 6 million Final Cut users. Final Cut for iPad, perhaps tens of thousands. I'd be surprised if it's more than that. So 5 or 6 million Final Cut on the Mac, tens of thousands Final Cut for the iPad. There's a dramatic difference between the two. Now, Final Cut for the Mac's been around for 13 years. Final Cut for iPad's only been around for 1 year, so that's understandable. But young people like their iPads. So young people who like their iPads are going to get Final Cut for the iPad, which is completely fine. That's completely fine. It's a good point. But Apple has hundreds of millions of users. So Final Cut Pro has 5 or 6 million. Apple has hundreds of millions of users. The vast majority of Apple people don't use Final Cut Pro. The vast majority of Apple people, iPhones, iPads, do not use Final Cut Pro. So of course Apple wants Final Cut Pro to be one of the apps that they're going to show on the iPad Pro, along with DaVinci Resolve, of course. Is Premiere on the iPad? Do they have Premiere? Is Premiere running on the iPad? I don't even know. I don't know. But there's over 100 million Apple users that aren't using Final Cut Pro. If they see they can get Final Cut Pro on the iPad, that's even more incentive. Of course, Apple wants Photoshop on the iPad, and they want DaVinci Resolve on the iPad, but they can't ignore Final Cut Pro. Preaching to the choir, the Apple event on Tuesday is not preaching to the Final Cut Pro choir. It's preaching to the Apple ecosystem choir, which is hundreds of millions of users. Plenty of room for growth. If an iPad user says, hey, I want to edit video, I want to step up from iMovie, you mean to tell me I can get Final Cut on the iPad for $5 a month? That's fantastic. Let me try it out and then get the subscription. I can subscribe for 1 month, unsubscribe, subscribe for 1 month, unsubscribe. For example, if a school situation is teaching video production, has a classroom full of iPads, and you want to edit your own stuff, you can subscribe for the school year. You can subscribe just to say September, October, November, and then if you go on vacation to December, unsubscribe. And if you're on vacation in January, unsubscribe, and then resubscribe back in February, March, and April. You don't have to subscribe 12 months out of the year. You can if you know you're going to use it. If I only had an iPad, didn't have a MacBook Pro or any other Mac, I would get the yearly subscription for Final Cut Pro because that would be my main way of editing video. No ifs, ands, or buts. But since I have the perpetual license of Final Cut for the Mac on my MacBook Pro, I don't need Final Cut for iPad. But if the iPad was my main device, I just get the yearly subscription. I think it's $50. So you save a little bit of money. Possible business model for Apple is including Final Cut for iPad when you purchase Final Cut Pro. They can charge extra, and it might incentivize people to purchase an iPad. You're welcome, Apple. That would be fine. If I had a Final Cut for the Mac, I'd get a free version of Final Cut for iPad. That would be fine. I'm not going to be subscribing for Final Cut for iPad, even if I get an iPad Pro. And I'm very tempted. Just for Luma Fusion and to keep me from buying a MacBook Pro right now. Now, if they pre-announce, I'm not buying anything until WWDC. That's not going to happen unless I saw somebody had a big sale on an iPad Pro. I'm not going to buy it between now and WWDC. So I'm going to wait till WWDC, see what they announce, talk about the A4, the M4, talk about AI, talk about blah, blah, blah. Then I perhaps will consider buying something after WWDC. I'm in no hurry. I got my MacBook Pro, I'm fine. So, really wish Apple would start to integrate AI into their products like others who focus more on the apps do. Firefly and some of the other features from Adobe are quite interesting. You have 1 month to wait. WWDC is going to be an announcement about AI. There might be some pre-announcement on Tuesday. They're not going to just introduce, they're not going to just introduce a normal upgrade to the iPad Pro. Something big. We know the pencil's coming because I've already shown that. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for tuning in and adding to our numbers. It is appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. You're adding to our view count. I appreciate that. It's fantastic. Now, let's talk about Final Cut Pro. Tuesday, Final Cut Pro 10.7.2 is very likely. Very likely. If not Tuesday, the next event would be WWDC. I've been saying that they've never updated Final Cut Pro at WWDC. There was one solitary bug fix that came out for Final Cut Pro at WWDC. Let me pull that up so I can correct my previous statements. Let me just pull that up. Timeline. I found that. Okay. All the way back 13 years ago, I've been saying no Final Cut Pro updates at WWDC. There was one single bug fix update to Final Cut Pro at WWDC. Final Cut Pro 10.0.5 came out on June the 11th, 2012, 1 year after Final Cut came out, and WWDC was June the 11th through the 15th. So one single Final Cut Pro bug fix update came out during WWDC. Just one. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. One. So we have Tuesday for Final Cut Pro, possibly 10.7.2. WWDC is an unlikely Apple event to introduce a new version of Final Cut. What they have done in the past, they have said, here's a preview version of Final Cut that's coming out later this year. When they introduced the Mac Pro, 2019 Mac Pro, they showed a future version of Final Cut that came out in December, 6 months later. They've done that, but they've never released a version of Final Cut at WWDC. So if we don't, I'm saying we're going to see 10.7.2 on Tuesday. I'm still going with that. Where's the commitment we were told would be there? I am seriously pondering a DaVinci Resolve switch, looking at the new beta features. DaVinci Resolve 19 is a killer application. I love it. I love being able to edit a 1 hour, 2 hour video via text and get my rough cut. I absolutely love that. I love taking that transcription and doing captions. It's fantastic, built into DaVinci Resolve 19. Something else, you should see the expanded way that they've incorporated voice isolation. Do I have that set? Yeah, I do. Mic delay. I just wanted to check on, make sure I had the right mic delay. They have an amazing, I don't know if I have it here or not, amazing, let me see if I can pull this up for you, and then we'll talk about that. Amazing DaVinci Resolve, here we go. Let me show you this. An amazing, absolutely amazing. Graph. Oh, there we go. I don't want that. Let me pull that off. That's not what I wanted. Hold on a second. I'll be right with you. Trying to figure this out. Okay, here we go. Look at this. You know, you have voice isolation in Final Cut. Look at what DaVinci Resolve 19 has. This is their expanded voice isolation. Let's go through this. I'll pull this down. Here we go. So they have a voice isolation at the top, 0 to 100% like Final Cut Pro. They have dialogue leveler, reduce loud dialogue, lift soft dialogue, background reduction. Once again, a nice addition. Look at this. They have dialogue separator. Dialogue separator. You can affect the voice, bring it up or down. You can affect the background, which is not the same as, this is a distinction between the voice isolation, and you can affect the ambiance, background and ambiance. For example, suppose you were in a room that was had a little bit of echo in it, but there was also outside noise. The background would remove the outside noise, but you could leave a little bit of the ambiance in that room so it doesn't turn completely dry. And you can use a slider, or you can just check it on and off with the check boxes. Look at this. Music remixer. You can isolate the voice, isolate the drums, isolate the bass, isolate other, I'm not sure what other would be, isolate the guitar. You can remix a music track. You can take the voice out. You can have only the voice, and you can have the same thing, check boxes or sliders. You also have an audio ducker. Audio ducker. These are things that Final Cut, this is so far more advanced than what Final Cut has for audio. Now, one of the things I'm expecting from Final Cut is an enhancement to voice isolation similar to what DaVinci Resolve has. So I just brought this up because they said, seriously pondering DaVinci Resolve. Switch looking at the new beta features. The new beta is phenomenal. The new beta features, they're just absolutely phenomenal. Speaking of that, so while I was at NAB, look who I got to talk to. I got a short interview, 5-minute interview.
Can I get a picture with you?
Yeah, no problem.
By the way, fantastic keynote Friday. Absolutely fantastic. It was over 2 hours long.
Yeah, it was really long.
I love Resolve 19.
It just got longer, and it's like, well, what do? You kind of cut so much out that you don't make any sense.
Right.
It's a bit tough to know how much to cut out, but
great job.
I'm glad it was useful. Like, that's the thing. I always think that, like, I've just sort of deliver all the detail. And some of it's good, most of it's good, you hope. Sometimes there's some caveats or not bad things, but like, no, it can do this or can't do that. I reckon if you just get all the information out there, and everyone else can kind of work out, oh, yeah, okay, that's important, that fixes that, or this is that. You don't quite know. Like when I was an engineer working in post, you kind of just tell people what's going on, and then they kind of know whether it's good or not. I don't actually, like, I'm hoping it's good. Like, we're going to find out pretty quickly.
So I got to actually... What I did was, I asked him, I said, can I get a picture with you? He goes, sure. Because he was out. This is the first morning. I'm going to just do this. Change that one preference. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. What I did was I saw Grant Petty. I said, is that Grant Petty out there? He was out there the first thing with Blackmagic. Can you imagine Tim Cook being out with Final Cut Pro? I mean, completely different things. I mean, Tim Cook has done a great job with iPhones mostly, and other things, and supply chains. That's what he's really was known for. But Grant Petty, his whole business is video production and switchers and hardwares and cameras and Blackmagic and DaVinci Resolve, etc. So I went up to him and said, "Can I get a picture with you?" He goes, "Sure." So I had my Insta360 extension with my iPhone, and I had this. It's a selfie stick, and I had the screen facing us, right? So he could see, so I could frame us properly and stuff. Now, I don't take photographs, okay? I shoot 4K video, and I pull a still frame from the 4K video. But he started talking. So he could see the screen was right in front of us. Both of us could see the screen. You could see the record button that it was recording. So he started talking, and which was fantastic. So I just let the camera roll. So, and then at the end, he waves to the audience. I said, wave to the audience if you don't mind. And he waved to the audience and see you later. Phenomenal. This is what springtime looks like on the East Coast of the good old USA. So anyway, I got the Grant Petty interview, which was really a highlight of going to NAB. I mean, I love Blackmagic for when they at NAB. 10.7.2 with new features and better utilization of the CPU and GPU part of the processors. The latter will be necessary if they want us with M1 version to upgrade to a new version. Okay, there you go. If I bought the M3 equivalent of my M1, it would roughly have the same speed as my current machine. I understand, completely understand. That's why I'm helping on to my M1. Everyone else is leaving Apple in the dust as far as integrating new technology and making this whole process easier and more exciting. I don't disagree with that, but let's wait. You know, I'm a perpetual Final Cut Pro optimist. I'm not a Final Cut Pro fanboy. I'm not an Apple fanboy. Absolutely not. I'm a proponent of both of those, but I don't blindly follow both and say everything, oh, nothing else can be good because Final Cut's the best in the world. I would give Final Cut Pro at this stage a B, maybe a B+, because since 10.7.7 came out with the scrolling timeline, we'll go with the B+. And I would give DaVinci Resolve an A. So I think DaVinci Resolve is more advanced and has a lot more features than Final Cut does. Now, everybody doesn't need those features. DaVinci Resolve is a lot more complex. That doesn't bother me. As a professional over my career, having complex software doesn't bother me in the least. I'll dive in and I'll learn how to use it. DaVinci Resolve is fantastic. Luma Fusion, I'm looking forward to the new version of Luma Fusion, version 5 coming out this summer. That's my other NLE. And then Final Cut Pro, of course, because I've been using Final Cut Pro the longest. I don't need anything else. Somebody said something about people that are complaining about lack of updates for Final Cut Pro. I tell them to go use Motion. What? I'm not interested in Motion. Let the experts deal with Motion, okay? I've got Logic, which I spent a lot of time in, and I have Final Cut Pro, Luma Fusion, and DaVinci Resolve. I'm not really interested in Motion. Motion is not an NLE, okay? It's not an NLE, period. That's a ridiculous thing to compare to the two. Just because you have lack of updates for Final Cut Pro. And here's the thing. Final Cut Pro is at a certain pace for updates. We know that. If you don't know it, you'll soon find out as you dive in. Final Cut Pro is a slow, steady train. Okay? It's slow and steady. It's not a bullet train like DaVinci Resolve is. Whew. Now, you can give, both of those have good points and bad points. You're not going to jump into Final Cut Pro and think you're going to prod the Final Cut Pro team to start doing updates. That's not going to happen. They're using their own pace of updating. Is it frustrating? Yes. The fact that everybody else has text-based editing for a year ago to NAB, DaVinci Resolve got it, Premiere has it, of course Avid has it, and we still don't have it in Final Cut. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating because this last year we can't update. We can't edit text in Final Cut Pro. You can with Luma, you can with Lumberjack systems, and you can't, I think that's the only one for text-based editing. Captions are different. It's frustrating. I want to see these features native in Final Cut Pro, but I'm not expecting them to change anytime in the future. What's your biggest prediction for Final Cut for Tuesday? I don't have any predictions, but I'd like to see text-based editing. I'd like to see text-based editing and auto captions in the new version of Final Cut. What else? Expanded, like I showed you, the DaVinci Resolve audio isolation panel, something like that. I love the fact that, here's outside. I love the fact that voice isolation is separated from background noise and room ambiance is separated. You have 3 different sliders in DaVinci Resolve 19, including voice isolation. So you can boost the voice up, you can get rid of the background, but you can still keep a little ambiance of the room you're in. So if I'm in a big concrete room, it looks sounds unnatural if that vocal is completely dry. Well, you can dial it in DaVinci Resolve. So I'd like to see like voice isolation. An audio mixer is coming in Final Cut Pro 10. When? No idea. They have an audio mixer. There'll be audio improvements with it. It's just like when I went to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, I wasn't expecting a scrolling timeline. But there it was. So this time I'm thinking they got to be working on text-based editing, auto captioning, etc. Do you feel like they will have an iPad Final Cut Pro feature that will try to help push sales? So we've talked about this. Final Cut Pro is probably not the biggest app that'll sell iPad Pros. Photoshop, maybe. Maybe Blackmagic, DaVinci Resolve on the iPad. I don't know. Final Cut would be one, but I don't think it would be the biggest. Procreate or Pixelmator Pro, graphics things, other features might be able to push sales, but Final Cut Pro wouldn't hurt sales. So suppose it creates 5 or 10% more iPad sales. That's why you could use it. And look at Final Cut for the iPad, $4.99 a month. Maybe they'll announce, here's 2 outside things. An iPad Pro with 2 Thunderbolt ports, Thunderbolt 5, the M4 chip, and what else was I going to say about it? Something else. I don't care about the Pro camera on the iPad Pro. Put it in there, it's fine. I'm not going around filming with an iPad in my hand. Okay, I'm not going to do that. So I think it just looks ridiculous to hold an iPad and film things. No, as a monitor, yeah, but not as a camera. It just looks too clunky. The complexity is why I've avoided DaVinci, meaning I don't have the time to learn the more editing software. This is my passion hobby. Spend more time learning tools I can't create. But if you spend the time, it's like anything else. That's like saying, oh, I'm not going to learn to be a good carpenter because I can already build a closet. But if you take the time and learn the tools and learn how to do crown molding and learn how to do all these extra things, you don't got to learn it all at 1 week, but don't limit yourself just to keeping at a basic level. Now, Final Cut is easier than Resolve, but Final Cut is frustratingly, it's aggravating that you can't do things that I can do in Luma Fusion. I can color code clips. I have a master overview timeline. I can lock tracks. I have a magnetic enhanced. Luma Fusion has a more advanced magnetic timeline than Final Cut Pro has. They call it the enhanced magnetic timeline. So the simplicity comes at a cost. Simplicity means not as sophisticated, not as many features. I like editing video. I don't mind spending time learning DaVinci Resolve. Speaking of that, DaVinci Resolve hands down blows away every other NLE for free training. Okay? Final Cut Pro has a really, really good user manual, but they have nowhere near the training that DaVinci Resolve has. They have PDFs. They have the user manuals. They have other PDFs. They have video training. They have seminars 2 or 3 times a year for free that you can attend. Week-long seminars to learn the software. Nobody can touch Blackmagic for training for the NLE. Can't touch it. They are completely, hands down, the best. Yes, the glacial pace. Yes, it is. Absolutely is. Final Cut on iPad is dead. I don't think so. It just started. I mean, I expect there's tens of thousands of people. I don't think there's millions like there is in Final Cut. It's certainly not dead. Look at students, especially people that want to advance from Final Cut, from iMovie. They don't want to spend $300 on a single piece of software. Now, first off, you can spend $199 and get all 5 pro apps if you're a student. So if it was me, I would enlist in a college, get my student ID, and buy the $199 version of all the pro apps: Final Cut, Logic, Compressor, Motion, and Stage something or other for Logic, for $199. But people that don't want to go that far, $4.99 a month, and use the iPad version, especially if the iPad is your main device. If the iPad is your main device, it makes complete sense. Get Final Cut for iPad. Or my recommendation would be to get Luma Fusion for $19. Right now it's on sale, 30% off until May the 6th. $19. Okay, $19. You got a perpetual license of Luma Fusion. That's only 4 months of renting Final Cut Pro. But with Luma Fusion, it's perpetual license. So that's the other thing I was going to say at this event. These are outside things, but they would be nice additions. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. Number 1 is an iPad Pro with 2 Thunderbolt ports. Okay? Number 2 is a perpetual license for Final Cut for iPad option. Doesn't mean you get rid of the subscription, but you offer another option. If you want to buy it, it's $99, and we'll give you 2 years of updates during that. We'll give you 2 years of updates for that $99. After 2 years, whatever version you have, you still have. It'll work forever, that version. When you want to get an update, you spend some more money for the update, $49 for the year, whatever. That would be fine. That's the way a lot of companies do it. They wasted their time on Final Cut on iPad. Well, I don't disagree with the fact that they delayed advancing Final Cut for the Mac while they're using resources on Final Cut for the iPad. Heck with that. I agree with that. Thumbs down on that. You should have a separate department of Final Cut for iPad. You shouldn't be pulling from your professional market Final Cut for Mac. I agree. I don't know if they wasted your time, but it's aggravating. Curious about this statement. Apple has big plans to announce from an A1 point of view during its iPad event next week, as well as the company annual developer conference in June. Yes, big plans to announce from an A1. So here's what I expect. Everybody is saying that Final Cut for iPad is going to have AI A1. A1 is a steak sauce. A1, not A1, AI. They're not adding steak sauce to the iPad Pro. No, they're not going to do that. AI to the iPad. There's no sense in introducing a new iPad Pro without AI. From what I understand, The M4 chip has some kind of hardware AI in it. So I expect the iPad Pro to have the A4 chipset, at least one version, maybe the high-end version, that has the AI hardware enhancement. I don't know. They may pre-announce some things that are going to happen at WWDC, but they're not going to circumvent the WWDC announcements about AI. That makes zero sense. No sense whatsoever. WWDC is the biggest Apple event of the year, and it's only 1 month away. So they're not going to circumvent the AI announcements that they're going to announce at WWDC, but they're very likely going to tease. They're going to tease the WWDC announcement. But I expect the iPad Pro, at least the high-end model, to have the A4 chip, because the A4 chip is some kind of AI-enhanced hardware. It makes no sense to have this event for the iPad Pro and put last year's M3 chipset in it. It doesn't make any sense. Talking about AI, you're talking about the A4 and forward, not the A3 and backwards. Here's our friend Brett from Brett FX. Long time no coffee. Hello, Richard. How you doing, Brett? Brett's a friend of mine that I met for the first time. I've been using his plugins for years, but we met in person at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. You don't have to know Resolve in its entirety. If you do, I agree with that. I'm only interested in Fairlight for audio and the edit page and the cut page. The edit page mostly. I'm not interested. I'm not going to be a colorist. I have no intentions of ever being a colorist. I have no ambitions to be a colorist. The same reason I don't use Motion, I'm not going to spend time learning Motion. I'm not going to spend time in the Fusion page. You're absolutely correct, Eric. It's a good point. I'm going to edit with DaVinci Resolve. And listen, the more that Final Cut Pro doesn't have features that I want, text-based editing is a huge one for me. Now I'm taking my audio into DaVinci Resolve to do audio voice isolation tweaking. It's much more sophisticated than what's available in Final Cut. Now, what's curious to me, speaking of voice isolation, Logic doesn't have a voice isolation plugin. 2 years? It was introduced 2 years ago in Final Cut Pro in 2022. 2 years later, Logic doesn't have voice isolation. Now, I know there's a voice isolation plugin in Mac OS, AU plugins, but they don't have an interface like Final Cut does. That's weird that Logic doesn't have it after all this time. I like DaVinci so far. Yes, it has some differences, but excited to learn more about it. Plus, I own it now, not like a Premiere subscription. Exactly. I would never recommend Premiere just because of the ransom that you have to pay, the Adobe ransom you have to pay for the rest of your life. When I talk about subscriptions, I'm not talking about services. Not talking about something like Frame.io, which is offering a service. I'm not talking about something like Ecamm Live, which offers a streaming service. They have to pay for that on a monthly basis. I'm talking about an app. Stops working. Premiere will stop working if you stop paying. You have to pay for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life, if you want to keep editing on Premiere. No thanks. That's a ransom. You're holding the app ransom. Majority of your people, at least 30 to 40% of your people, would rather pay for a perpetual license. Therefore, you're ignoring a lot of your customers by not offering that. $19. Luma Fusion's on sale until tomorrow, till Monday. Once Apple does their presentation, it's no longer on sale. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they know a new version of Final Cut for iPad's coming out or not. But up to Monday, through Monday, $19 for Luma Fusion. I'm sorry, that's a couple of coffees. That's 3 or 4 Starbucks coffees. The only problem I have with Luma Fusion is that the voiceover sounds better when done in Final Cut Pro on the same computer than in Luma Fusion. Okay, I did not know why, but it sounds thinner when done in Luma Fusion. Well, that's because it's iOS versus macOS. I don't think it's Luma Fusion. I think that's a restriction of the iOS versus macOS. I prefer macOS way more than iOS. Apart from that, I really like Luma Fusion. Obviously, I'm biased, but waiting patiently for Apple to open up the iPad to third-party devs. Why haven't they done that, Brett? That doesn't make any sense. Luma Fusion has third-party plugins. Our friends, Roger Bolton over there at CoreMelt, had one of the original stabilizing plugins for iPad. Why doesn't Final Cut? I don't know. Is this the first event in May for Apple? I think it's maybe the second. They very rarely have events in May. I'm still betting on Final Cut Magic Mask. People talk about that all the time. I can see where that would be very useful. Being the next thing is just too useful, and they've already expressed interest with the scene removal mask. Absolutely. Absolutely. We have a little woodpecker there eating the suet. Little teeny woodpecker. This way, right there. Little woodpecker on the suet cake. We keep this out year-round for the different animals. You can see the garden in the background now. It's above the, to the right. That's where the garden's going to be. It's going to have deer fence. Keep the deer out. There's no sense in having a garden if you have your deer come and eat all your products. Speaking of Luma Fusion, I want to thank all the fantastic sponsors that, let me pull this up. I want to thank all these sponsors that sponsored me to go to NAB, Hedge for video, Fusion Media Conferences, Luma Touch, Luma Fusion, and our good friend Roger over there from Australia, CoreMelt, who didn't even go to NAB and still sponsored Final Cut T to go there. He's been a good friend and a good supporter of Final Cut TV for years. For years now. So, I think some sort of captions has to be in the next 1 to 2 updates in Final Cut Pro. I'm sure once it's there, it'll work pretty well since it's taken so long. Well, there's 2 things. Number 1, captions, but text-based editing is what I like to see. In other words, you select a clip or you select a timeline, you transcribe it. Once it's transcribed, you get a text document. You can select, copy, paste, move things around, and it's reflected in the timeline. Since you already transcribed it, you can also do captions, auto captions. But text-based editing has got to be part of that equation, not just auto captions. That's more limited than what I'm talking about. It's more limited. So what do you think is going to be happening at the iPad event? Obviously, we're going to see, let me pull this up. Obviously, we're going to see, let me see where this is, Can't link. That's interesting. If I do that, let me, there we go. That's what I wanted to do. Let me do that. Let me do wide. Let's do circle. And let's do a border width. Little border. We're doing that live. Look at that. So what do you think is going to be happening at this event Tuesday? Well, we know, obviously, they have a pencil right there in the graphic, right? So obviously, we know there's going to be a new pencil, Pencil 3, version 3, Pencil 3 Pro, whatever. There's supposed to be haptic feedback. So we know that's going to happen. But what else is there going to be? Why is Tim Cook going like this? One more thing. And if you notice behind, let me pull myself over there. If you notice beside Tim Cook's, under his arm, there's a little something Final Cut Pro happening. A little bit of Final Cut Pro stuff happening. At least that's my take on it. That is my take on it. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. Auto captions is for tubers. Yep, tubers that get millions and millions and millions of views, more than film companies and traditional television get. Auto captions is not just for tubers, by the way. When I worked at the National Archives years ago, we had to caption all of our videos. If it's dependent on Siri to transcribe, this may be why it has taken so long. Siri has definite limitations. That's why plugins like Captionator now use Mac Whisper. I agree 100%. Siri is just ridiculous. Siri is not one of the things that I would convince people to switch to a Mac. Siri has been behind, way behind. Siri's like 1990s technology. I hope we get new AirPods Max. 12.9 instead of 11.9 iPad Pro. Interesting to feel the difference, including weight. I think they're going to be thinner because, why did I read about that? Is that the chip, the M4 chip or something, or less cooling or whatever? Siri's embarrassing. I'm not going to defend Siri. Siri is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous compared to what people can do with AI nowadays. It's just it's been that way for a long time. I've never said Siri is the best, and I wouldn't use Siri as an excuse. To switch to a Mac. I'm sorry. I just had his mute button on. So here's the deal. What do you think will be a surprise for for the iPad event? iPads are not a surprise. Everybody's expecting those. The M4 chip is not a surprise. That's been predicted. Final Cut Pro would be a surprise to the majority of Final Cut Pro people. Okay? But not for you, because you've been listening to this show for weeks and months, and I've been talking about 10.7.2 for quite a while. So it'll be a surprise to a lot of people, but not the people that are smart and watch this show on Saturdays. Hello from Italy. There's another country. 6, 7, 8, 9 countries so far. This is a worldwide Final Cut Pro. Final Cut TV is worldwide. We have a worldwide audience, obviously. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It is appreciated. Speaking of the Final Cut Pro team, we always want to do this because the Final Cut Pro team does watch this broadcast. And they do see your comments. They do see your comments. Since the Final Cut Pro team is watching, let's give them a round of applause. That's the Final Cut. That's for the Final Cut Pro team. This is for you, everybody there. You guys. Gals. Happy birthday balloons. I don't know what the heck that is. Whatever. So I take, anytime there's long form audio, I want to edit by text. I take it into DaVinci Resolve 19. It's really, really cool. The surprise would be Mac OS on iPad, but that's not happening. They are moving camera to the horizontal. Big plus, thumbs up for that. I think for webcam and new keyboard from the stuff I've heard. Yeah, if I get an iPad Pro, I'll get the pencil for sure, because I love doing things with pencil, certain things. Keyboard, I don't need to get that right away, but I'll probably get that as well. But I don't know. The idea of an iPad is you use your fingers and the pencil. I don't know if I have a MacBook Pro and I have my wireless keyboard. I don't think I'm not going to get, this will work with the iPad Pro, right? Bluetooth? I don't need a keyboard for the iPad Pro. And I'm not going to get that. It's not my main machine. I'll get the pencil. I'll get a nice case for it. I'll use my fingers like I'm supposed to. So when I went to NAB, I was on the airplane and I had downloaded Fallout, the Fallout TV series, which is really, really good. And I'm watching it on my iPad because I downloaded all the episodes. And then there's a woman up ahead of me about 2 seats up watching it on her iPhone turned horizontally. So I'm like 1 or 2 episodes ahead, so I know what's coming up. I can see her because she's also in an aisle seat, and I can see her watching Fallout as well. It's a really good series. It's science fiction. It's based on a game. It's pretty cool. So surprise would be Mac OS on iPad. They said they're not merging the two. I mean, at some point perhaps, but I don't think it's there yet. I'm not a big fan of iOS. I like Mac OS a lot better than iOS. So Siri is an on-device digital assistant. That is the reason why it takes some time before a new iPhone and have the same knowledge of what you're usually doing on the old one had. That's interesting. Of course, it pulls information from the internet, but it does not share it across devices via iCloud. Hello, Jan, my fellow Dane. There you go. 4 terabyte in new iPads. Here's the thing. The iPhone 15 Pro Max, I can edit. I can plug this in. Where's my little one? Here, let's do this one. Here's the deal with the iPhone. With the iPhone, and I think some of the iPads. I don't need to get large storage anymore. I can just plug this in, and I have a 4 terabyte drive. I use the Crucial 9, the X9 Pro, and I have 4 terabytes of storage, and I can edit video off of this drive with my iPhone 15 Pro Max in Luma Fusion. Okay? That's what I'll be doing in the iPad Pro as well. I don't need to get the largest storage device because I can just use these 4 terabytes. I got 2 of these. I got them on sale. They were like $239 or something. I forget what it was. I picked up 2, worked on the iPhone, and then if I edit on this, and I just plug it into my Mac, and it just mounts, and I can edit off that as well. So 4 terabytes in new iPads is not something I'm interested in. I'd probably get a 1 terabyte just for have basic stuff, but I don't need the 4 terabyte. Now, the iPhone 15 Pro Max has a USB-C chip controller built in, which the other iPhones prior to that do not have. So you can edit directly off of the SSD. You don't have to pull the stuff into the iPhone to edit. But I don't think Final Cut for the iPad. Well, you can't use it on the phone anyway. But I don't think you can edit off Final Cut for the iPad from the SSD directly. You have to pull it in. Don't take my word for it though. All this, because I'm pretty sure I heard they are moving from front camera on something I heard us watch recently. Use it the keyboard case, which makes sense. Yeah, I've heard it's going to be on the horizontal plane rather than the vertical plane. That's the way I would use it. I'm not going to use it vertically. I'm going to use it horizontally when I do FaceTime. So that's a good switch. Does Luma Fusion pricing include the Mac, or do you need a separate purchase? One price. $19.99. It's always the same version of the app. It's the iPad version or the iPhone version, but the iPad version of Luma Fusion runs on M1 Macs. You can edit on an M1 Mac. And they have a person, I did an interview with them. I've done many interviews over the years. At NAB, I did an interview, and he says, always ask him about the Mac version, and they have a person who makes sure that the Mac version, it's not a Mac version, it's still the iPad version. It just runs on the Mac, and you use a keyboard and a mouse rather than a pointer. They have a dedicated person to make sure that the Mac version is not frustrating, because it's really the iPad app. So you answer your question, one price, iPhone, iPad, Mac, $19. I don't care if you're not going to use it right now. Spend $19 and you have it available for yourself. It's a great, great NLE. Do you think there will be anything on the Vision Pro? At this event, there could be an update. I mean, that would make sense. They're also going to talk about the Vision Pro at WWDC, of course. Would the calculator app be a surprise for the iPad? What is it with the iPad and the calculator app? I couldn't care less about the calculator app on the iPad. I mean, that's just like, of all the things that I'm concerned about, that's way out in the stratosphere for me. I use if I want to use a calculator, I use it on here. People are obsessed about the iPad version, the first time it's been on the iPad. Okay, that's fine. Maybe accountants. I upgrade my iPad most times. We'll do it again. So Eric, you upgrade your iPad most times. Is that your main machine? Do you have a MacBook Pro or another Mac that you edit video on, or is the iPad Pro most of your stuff? Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated, of course. That's what I'm curious about, because my main machine is certainly my MacBook Pro. Not sure because it's on my phone, but wants $20 for the Mac version. Nope. Absolutely not. There's no Mac version. Well, let me think. No, is there a Mac version on the Mac App Store? No, just log in. Now, how does that work? You know something? I don't know how that works. Now you've got me thinking. But no, I asked specifically, no. One price, iPhone, iPad, and the Mac version. One price. Now you got me thinking. What the heck's going on there? Let me go over there and look. What the heck's going on? Let me see what's going on here. Let's go look together. No, I know that. I know it's not the case. You're just not logged in properly or something. Let me go over here and look. So here we go. Here it is, right here. See? Luma Fusion. All I have to do is download it. I didn't buy it separately. I have the Mac version. I have the iPad version, and it just comes up. I mean, it's just there. So let's open this up for the heck of it. I didn't even think about that. I don't know. So let's open this up for the heck of it. I already have multicam. See, I already have multicam, so that's there. That's a separate purchase. This is how they make their money. You know, this is interesting. I was not. That's interesting. So there's the Mac version. Look, there's the Mac version of Luma Fusion. No additional money. That should be turned off. No additional money. Same price. So if something's wrong with your login or something that's causing you to see that, Luma Fusion does even run great on the M1 Air, and I use it as my main editor until I got more screen real estate with my 16-inch M1 Pro. I can highly recommend it, absolutely. Improving contacts would be a better app update. I'm not sure what the improvements need to be. He has an M Studio. He has a Mac Studio M2 also. Okay, there you go. The App Store says it's the iPad version, but wants money. Well, I'm thinking you're maybe logged into two different iTunes accounts. Log out, log back in again. If you paid for the iPad version, you get, I'm telling you, you get the Mac version. It's the same. It's the iPad version running on the M1 Max. Thank you very much. A thumbs up. I know that for a fact. I've talked to them plenty of times, and that's one of the things I talk about all the time. So if you can't get satisfaction through the App Store, I would log out, log back in again on your Mac, and make sure that you bought it on the iOS on your iPhone or iPad. Make sure it's registered there. It should be no problem. No money. Are you going live Tuesday to discuss? Now, Matthew, what do you think? What do you think is a possibility? Yes. I'll be going live no matter what. If there's no version of Final Cut Pro, it doesn't make it in. We'll still talk about whatever the event was. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. I have mine by family sharing, so maybe that is why. But I think, well, if you have an issue, contact Luma Fusion. They're the best people. That's iPad version. Yes, it's an iPad. There's no Mac version of Luma Fusion. Okay? There's no separate version of Luma Fusion. The iPad version of Luma Fusion runs on M1 Macs because they're both Apple Silicon. There's no separate version. There's no separate Mac version of Luma Fusion. It's the iPad version running on M1 Macs. I think the Notes app is super underrated. I use it all the time and love that it syncs between devices. Not only syncs between devices, you can share a note with somebody. So I've already done it. We're going to modify, I have a film that's going to be shown on July the 20th at the American Film Institute down in Silver Spring, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. It's our second showing of this film. We're going to modify a few items of it. But we have a shared note. In my notes, I share it with this other producer editor. And as I make notes, it updates live on his version of that shared note. And when he makes notes, it updates live on my version of the notes. So we have a live note. Any changes are instantly done back and forth. Live notes. I love that feature. We do that all the time. I make notes in there. For Tuesday's editing session, let's do X, Y, and Z. He may have it back, and we have it when we do the edit session. So that's Luma Fusion 4.1.3. Version 5 is coming out this summer, and it has some free features. Luma Fusion will have 16 video tracks in the near future on an M2 iPad Pro. M2 iPad Pro. You know, one of the other things neat about Luma Fusion, first off, their multicam, it's a separate purchase, is phenomenal. It's better than NLE's multicam. One of the things it has a locked audio track that doesn't get edited when you edit the other 6 tracks of video. You have a dedicated audio track that does not get sliced up with the video when you switch video. Like, it's aggravating in Final Cut Pro. You cannot take a separate track out of the multicam editor. Every time you make a cut in the video, the audio gets sliced as well. It will be sometime after version 5.0. There you go. And Freeform for live collaboration too. I'm not sure. I don't know what. I haven't used Freeform yet. I think that's some kind of a drawing tool. Is that what that is? I'm not even sure. Thank you for the thumbs up. Hey, get your coffee. It's actually it's noon here. Noon here on the East Coast of the good old USA. So when I was at NAB, I really super enjoy NAB. I really do. You know, thanks to my sponsors is one of the reasons I can go. And looking forward to it for next year, hopefully. Everything's not blown up by then. But so we have 3 things that are happening with Final Cut Pro between now and the rest of 2024. Tuesday, it's a possibility. I'm not going to take a $100 bet, but I'll take a coffee bet that we're going to see 10.7.2 Tuesday. The next thing would be some kind of an announcement or demonstration at WWDC. I do not expect an update at WWDC, but that certainly could happen. So that's the second time that we could see something with Final Cut Pro. And then the biggest one is the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit in November. Had a great time last year. With the Final Cut Pro team, future media conferences, we went to Apple Park. What a phenomenal, phenomenal place. So at Apple Park last year at the Creative Summit, and I'm just looking in the windows of all the people that are working. I'm thinking, do they know how lucky they are to be working in a place as cool as the Apple Park? Now, to them, it may just be a regular job, and it's just 9 to 5. From the outside, what a phenomenal place to be. What a phenomenal place to be working. If I was there, I would appreciate the actual specialness of working at Apple Park. Got Luma Fusion? Turns out the Mac, you have to tell the App Store to look for the family member purchases, and then, very important, switch from showing iMac apps to iPhone, iPod apps. There you go. So if you're having that issue, that's how you do it. Here it is, almost 6 in the evening. Here it is almost 6 in the evening. So you're 6 hours difference for me. Freeform is Apple's whiteboard app, picks text flowcharts. So here's the deal. If they announce, well, no, not if, when they announce new iPad on Tuesday, and if I end up, it's very likely that I'll get a new iPad. Not on day one. I don't need it on day one. Between the announcement, I'll wait for see a sale or something and get a couple $100 off. Because I'm sure it's going to be $2,000. The one I want is probably going to be, I'm going to get the biggest screen, going to get the pencil. I'm not getting the keyboard. I have other keyboards I can use. I don't need that. Oh, you're right. Let's go back here. Look at this. Right here. Showing iPhone and iPad app results. See Mac app results. This is showing iPhone and iPad app results. So this is what you want to make sure. See, it says Mac apps, iPhone, iPad apps. Mac apps, iPhone, iPad apps. There you go. You have to have iPhone and iPad apps. Does it say up here? Window. But anyway, you have to show Mac apps, iPhone, iPad apps. It's not a Mac app. It's an iPad app that's running on the Mac. Freeform seems like a simplified version of Keynote. So Apple's whiteboard app, text pictures, yeah, it's like a whiteboard, though it's more for collaborating, I think. At least that's what I think. So I've been fooling around with my lighting in here in the upstairs studio, and I've softened it. I've had some little bit of softening. Oh, there we go. We got our comment from X. Hey, Richard, big fan over the years. Thoughts on Apple's possible integration and next update of AI tools like Adobe Premiere, use of scale 1 to 10 being 10 the highest? I think absolutely. I think that's where Apple's headed, is AI integration. Now, they've taken a longer time than other people because there's still issues. This was surprising in one respect. So I heard about CapCut a couple months ago. From what I understand, when you use CapCut, AI, whatever, it logs, it accesses your contacts. So all the people in your contact list, it has access to them. It accesses your entire photos library, all of your photos and all of your videos. And this was the most surprising. It can record your keystrokes. It can monitor your keystrokes. Bullshit. Excuse my French on that. BS. I deleted CapCut. I want nothing to do with CapCut or TikTok. You are not going to access my keystrokes. I never give an app permission to use my contact list. I understand that it needs access to the photos library only while using the app. Not, I can access all your videos and photos perpetually. That's what the end user license agreement for CapCut does. Keystrokes. It can monitor your keystrokes. It can get into your contacts and bombard them with spam. No. Deleted it from my Mac. You're not getting that nonsense. Luma Fusion will never do that. Watch my interview with Luma Fusion at NEB, and Terry specifically says, no, we will never do that to you. So, thoughts on Apple's possible integration next update of AI tools? Like, yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely AI is coming. It's going to be everywhere. I'm going to trust the way Apple does AI more than anybody else. Okay? I'm going to trust Apple's way of doing AI more than anybody else's. Whatever they do. As far as, yeah, I think we're going to see hints of it on Tuesday, or if they have the M4 chip in the iPad Pro, that's supposed to be hardware AI somehow, hardware enhanced AI from what I understand. So it makes sense it would be the M4. And yes, I think it's coming, absolutely coming. Freeform is also without borders, meaning that you can make your presentation as wide or as tall as needed, okay? Joe Beeb, how about tools like Sora, Pika, etc.? I'm not sure what they are. Are they AI tools? I don't know. I don't know about them. I'm not using any AI specific tools at this point. I'm not using them. I mean, unless Google is AI now, I don't know. Excellent. Agree. Thanks. Absolutely, Joe. Thanks for tuning in, Joe, by the way, on X. Windows also monitors your keystroke. I heard that around 7 years ago from an ex-Windows employee. No, I don't want you monitoring my keystrokes. Sorry, I don't want you accessing my contacts. That's for me to decide. I don't want you accessing that nonsense. BS. Freeform is really good. I use it as my storyboard. Now you've got me interested in Freeform. Now I got to see, I have to bring that up and use it and see what it's about. It makes sense. Those are tools that Premiere showed at NAB. Okay, there you go. So I'm not a fan of Adobe. I don't like their ransom model where you got to pay the rest of your life. You can never stop paying if you want to keep on using Premiere. Now, having said that, I did get a chance to talk with Emery from Frame.io while I was at Luma Fusion. While I was at the Adobe Suite. And he was very, very cool. Really, really liked it. I'm just trying to see if I have. We talked for about 10 or 15 minutes. So he gave me a tutorial of Frame.io. Now, Adobe bought Frame.io, but I separate. When I say subscriptions, I don't mind paying subscriptions, number one, to smaller developers and stuff. But if the company is giving you a service like Ecamm Live I'm using here, I send them a stream and they send out my stream to 3 different platforms, Facebook, X, and YouTube. They have to pay for that bandwidth every month. That's not a one-time purchase thing. I don't mind that for a service like that. That's fine. I don't want a subscription for an app. Okay? Yeah, the iPad version of Final Cut, it's $5 a month. It's almost, it's one coffee for the month. So that's really a low point of entry. So I don't mind that one so much. Plus the fact that I can turn it on and off on my phone. My iCloud settings, you can turn on and off subscriptions. It's drop dead simple. I think we'll be surprised how great the built-in hardware is for AI in the current machines. The software is lacking at the moment, but Apple really working on that. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm excited about Tuesday. I'm always excited about the iPhone event in September or beginning of October, usually in September. I'm always waiting for that. That's usually at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. This event on Tuesday is 7 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock in the morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So it's 10 o'clock in the morning here. They're going to be doing a presentation. They're doing their iPad thing. Now, obviously, it's pre-recorded. They don't do them live anymore. It's all pre-recorded and stuff. So I'm excited about it. Regardless of the Final Cut Pro component, I'm still interested to see if they introduce the M4 chip for the iPad, which would be unusual. They've never debuted an M chip on an iPad before that I know of. It's always debuted on a Mac. I don't think it would be smart of them to say, oh, we got the M4 coming on the iPad Pro, and here it is on the iPad. On the MacBook Pro, and here it is on the iPad. Don't do that because I'm not buying the iPad. You can say at WWDC later this year, we're going to be seeing the M4 version on the MacBook Pro. That would be very cool. Exciting times, absolutely exciting times. Absolutely exciting times. I'm excited about the M4 chip going forward. Now, like I said, my MacBook Pro has been fantastic. I got the M1 Max. And I really like using my MacBook Pro as my desktop map. I have 3 different screens. The MacBook Pro screen, my 34-inch LG monitor, which is Thunderbolt, and I have another screen over to the side. So I run 3 screens when I'm using my MacBook Pro. My MacBook Pro is my desktop Mac. That's not going to change going forward because I take this with me when I go to NAB and the Creative Summit. That's how I live stream. So, yeah, it's exciting times. Tuesday. Now, for you people, I'll be regardless of what happens at the event. I'm not even saying that they might not even say there's a new version of Final Cut Pro at the event for the Mac version. They may just talk about the iPad version. But I suspect it's going to happen the same time. It'll be in the App Store, 10.7.2 on Tuesday. That's my bet. I will bet you one coffee. If I'm right, you can go to buymeacoffee.com. Looking at it, it sounds different in here. Sounds different in the cup. This is my Snoopy mug from Christmas. You can go to buymeacoffee.com. And if I'm wrong, I'll buy one lucky listener a coffee next time I see you. If I see you at the Creative Summit or NAB, I'll give you a token to buy you a coffee. But I think I'm going to be right. Imagine if the new Apple Pencil will be charged by the heart of your hand or by kinetic motion. I guess now, do they charge magnetically now? I know I've seen them stick to the top of an iPad, but do they charge? It's magnetic. Do they charge via that connection? That's all I would really need. Have it charge. Heat. Yes. I don't think there's enough heat in my hand. My hands are not that warm. As a matter of fact, excuse me, it's a little bit cool here today. It's 53 degrees at 12 noon. That's Fahrenheit. That's a little bit cool. That is a little bit cool. So is anybody else, let me see, is anybody else is anybody else going to buy an iPad? Somebody said there were. I think Eric said he was. The iPad Pro version does charge magnetically. So it charges the pencil magnetically. That's what I'm talking about. I know the pencil sticks to the iPad Pro via magnet. Does the pencil charge magnetically? The back, I understand. I mean, I got that on my phone as well. I know this charges, but does the pencil magnetically charge on an iPad Pro? That's my question. Not the iPad itself, but the pencil. So I'm not sure. If it doesn't, obviously that'll be something that should be going with the new iPad. Hey, look. People were saying there's going to be an iPad event in March. Then they said it's going to be April. Then they said it's going to be this first week of May. So they've delayed. Something's up. First off, number one is the fact that Apple's having an event. Because, what was my train of thought there? They released the the Air MacBook Pro in March with no Apple event. Just a press announcement. They could have done the iPad Pro the same way, but there's something more about this iPad Pro event than just releasing a new iPad Pro. Now, something's happening. It could just be a preview of WWDC. Don't know. Maybe they'll announce they bought Canva. I'm not even sure what Canva is. I guess it's something to do with... Yes, the pencil does charge magnetically and have done so for years. Okay, there you go. So that wouldn't be new. Apple probably bought Disney. I don't watch anything Disney hardly at all anymore. A lot of this, people, attendance in theaters are down. People know that. Theaters, Hollywood people listen to this. Attendance in theaters is down. Now, obviously, because of the pandemic, it took a toll for a couple years. If you put out better quality products, more people would go to theaters. I've seen some horrible films come out. Just the subject matter, I couldn't care less about. Just terrible writing. I'm not talking about production. I'm not talking about lighting. I'm not talking about audio. I'm not talking about video editing. I'm talking about the stories have turned horrible. A lot of them. I couldn't care less about half the stuff that's coming out of Hollywood. Over half. Over half. They're ruining the superhero movies, et cetera, et cetera. So don't be surprised when people don't go to the theaters when you put out stuff that people aren't interested in. This is the version 2 of the pencil. The cheaper USB-C version only charged via USB, and the first version via Lightning. Blackbird. Starling. That's not a crow. Crows are too big. That's a starling. Canva bought Affinity, bringing AI to Affinity, I'm sure. There you go. Disney was drawn by pencil in the past, and there's a pencil rumor. There you go. Just kidding, of course. Nice bird. That was a starling. We have starlings. They're like junior crows, is what they are, like junior crows. And then the raven's even bigger than that. So the starling's the blackbird, kind of normal size. The crow is dramatically bigger than the starling, 2 to 3 times the size of the starling. And the raven is even bigger than that. The raven's like a small turkey. Canva is sort of the CapCut of design without the keystroke recording. Well, keystroke recording and accessing your contacts. Why does an NLE have to access your contacts? That's to spam the people. No. Anybody that's in my contact list, I give no app permission to get in my contacts. Never. No, you don't have permission to get into my contacts. Absolutely not. No, I'm not giving you permission to record my keystrokes, but the problem is these are not separate checklist items you can check on and off. When you agree to install CapCut, it's in their 50-page end user license agreement, buried in there somewhere. And if you watch my Luma Fusion video from NAB, Terry talks specifically about this nonsense that's going on hidden in these EULAs. And Terry said, Luma Fusion will never, never do that to you. I hope we'll see some iOS GarageBand news at WWDC. What? Boy, I haven't heard that name for a long time, GarageBand. I use Logic, so I don't use GarageBand. What would you like to see? What would you like to see? Just an update? AI features? By the way, speaking of Final Cut Pro, and speaking of Final Cut for the iPad, there's also Logic Pro for the iPad and Logic Pro for the Mac. They need updates. I don't know if Logic Pro for the iPad has it, but Logic Pro for the Mac still doesn't have voice isolation. Yes, there's a Mac OS plugin that has voice isolation you can put on the track. I'm talking about a graphic user interface, even if it's just a slider like Final Cut Pro built into Logic Pro. It's amazing. It's amazing that it's not in there after 2 years. Major overhaul with new instruments. So you use GarageBand is what, I guess that's what I'm asking. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It is appreciated. By the way, I want to thank everybody who's listening right now, watching Final, as a matter of fact, where is that? Let me put that up there. Final Cut TV and Coffee, to all you listeners and watchers of this show every Saturday morning. Thank you for tuning in. Fantastic. Yes, he loves GarageBand. There you go. And GarageBand is free. It's one of the free apps on the on your it's iOS and Mac OS, right? I think it is, yes. Oh, you know what? I just realized I can add a comment right here. I can add a comment to YouTube through my eCam interface. Look what I just did right there. I don't have to go to YouTube and enter the comment. I can enter it in the, I just realized the comments and reaction panel. It says, add a comment to YouTube. I can do it right from the eCam interface. Pretty cool. Very cool. So I'm excited. I'm excited for Tuesday. Even if there's no Final Cut update, even if there's no Final Cut Pro update, I'm excited about the event. Why do an event? There's got to be a reason. More than just a single product announcement or two products announcement. Does it show on all platforms? No, this just shows on YouTube. It says add a comment and it has in parentheses YouTube. So we have X, we have our friend from X over there commenting. Most of the comments are coming from YouTube. We have 52 people watching live right now, which is very, very cool. Most of the comments come from YouTube, and Joe B comments from X, and then we had somebody from Facebook. Let me see who was in Facebook. We had some comments from Facebook as well. Eric Emmerich from Facebook. So we have from all three platforms. I have a Twitch account, Richard Taylor TV, and I've streamed to there before, but I really don't, I don't have any followers on there, so I really don't want to, there's no reason for me to stream there now. I mean, I could try it again some point. Let me see what we got here. Is it just a small event? No. I mean, a small event is when they introduced the MacBook Air in March. It was no event, and they just did it with a press announcement. They could have, if it's just an iPad, if it's just a single iPad Air, and that's all it is, I mean, an iPad Pro, maybe a second model, they could do the same thing and just announce it with the press release. They don't have to do an event. How many, the events cost thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. Because they're filming, they got to schedule Tim Cook in there, they got the film crew, they got editing to do and stuff. So I suspect there's a reason why they're doing an event rather than just a press release. Maybe, hey, maybe they just missed us. Yes, that would be nice if they said, we miss all of you and we want to give you accolades. That would be great from Apple, the Final Cut Pro team. Very funny. Yeah, they did. I'm sure they missed us. Yeah, but there's a reason they're doing this. They're not doing it because they want to for no reason. They're doing it for a reason, I suspect. Now, can you please everybody? No. Will you please everybody? Not very likely. They won't please everybody no matter what they do. It's hard to please everybody, isn't it? I'm sure all of you know that. It is hard to please everybody. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. Fantastic, fantastic. I don't know is everybody going to be watching the event? I'll be watching it live. And we'll do a live stream right after that. Just to talk about the event, comment on it, whatever you like to do. Now, you have to remember, Final Cut Pro team watches this live stream. I'm curious about the one more thing. Well, that was me. Okay? That was me. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That was me. Hello? Hello. Yes, this is Richard. Yes, we are live. We're live. Of course, you're calling the live show. What are you? Yes, we're live. We're live right now. I won't say who this is. Okay, you're calling the anonymous tip line, the anonymous Phonica Pro tip line. That's what you called. You have this number. This is not my cell phone. This is the Phonica Pro anonymous tip line. I'm not going to say who you are. Don't worry about it. That's not going to happen. So what you wanted to comment about the event on Tuesday and what's going to happen with Phonica Pro? Really? See, that's what I thought. That's what I thought was going to happen. That's what I thought. I'm not going to say anything. You can tell me it's going in one ear and it's staying in my head. It's not going out the other ear. It's staying right in my head. What else can you tell me about that event? There's something happening. Well, I know that. iPad Pro, look, we know about the iPad Pro. It's got a larger screen. It's got the M4 chip, right? But does it have 2 Thunderbolt ports? I'd like to see 2 Thunderbolt ports. Thunderbolt 5 ports. Really? Well, that would be interesting. There's a reason why you're having an event and not just doing a press conference. I mean, not just doing a press release. You did a press release for the MacBook Air in March, nothing in April, and now you're coming back in May, which is also a very first. You don't do many events in May, right? You don't do many events in May. If maybe this is the second time, and there is going to be AI. Yeah, of course, we know that. But what's really? Well, that's certainly interesting. I look forward to the event on Tuesday. I mean, I'm excited regardless of what you told me about Final Cut. I'm excited regardless of that. But on top of that, if there's an update to Final Cut Pro, extraordinary. Extraordinary. As a matter of fact, let's do this. Okay. Well, that's phenomenal. Phenomenal. You can call back anytime. We're live on the air, and I'm not going to say who it is. I'm not going to say who it is. But I appreciate that you called in. Yes, I realize that. I appreciate that you called in, and you can call back anytime, Tim. Thanks for calling in. Bye. All right. Curious about the one more thing. That was me who did that. There could not be a one more thing. That's something Steve Jobs used to do. Have they always had it so early? No. They've never had one at 7 a.m. Pacific time that I know of. Never. But remember the one last October, the Halloween one? 5 o'clock at night, Eastern. That's also a time they haven't done it. If they're doing it 7 a.m., they're doing it 7 a.m. Pacific. Maybe that's for something happening in Europe. I heard there's something happening over in England. Unfortunately, I have a meeting when the event is live, but I will watch after the meeting. Absolutely. Love your jokes. Thank you. Here's the thing I found about comedy or humor, let's say. 30% of the people don't have a sense of humor. They don't either get the jokes or they take things too seriously or whatever. But 30% of the people don't have a sense of humor. Keep that in mind. It's Apple calling, asking to stop sharing all your company announcements. Listen, Apple could zap my MacBook Pro remotely. I'm sure they could. I'm just not really. There you go. 555 FCTV. There you go. That's the number. That's the Final Cut Pro tip line. Absolutely. Absolutely. The best part, when you picked up the phone handle, it kept ringing. I know. I have to coordinate picking up the phone and turning the ringer off. Absolutely. That's 50% of stats are made up. I think more than that. I don't trust any stats. I don't trust any of them. It's just too much nonsense out there right now with AI and people making up stuff. And I don't mean everybody. Okay, I don't trust anything. I don't trust anything. Have you seen the one with Abraham Lincoln playing a Stratocaster guitar? Come on. It looks great. It looks fantastic. Black and white photograph. And they have a picture of Abraham Lincoln playing a Strat. Not my Strat over here, but another Strat. It's silly. Silliness out there. Don't believe anything you see anymore. Anything you read, double check, look for the original sources. Stats are just a bunch of baloney. People can make stats say anything they want. Okay? Anything they want. But I'm telling you that Final Cut Pro has 4 to 5 million seats available. Well, 100% of Final Cut TV hosts didn't get my joke. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not sure what the heck you're talking about. What joke? 50% of stats are made up? Is that your joke? No, I'm being serious. I don't believe stats. Do you believe stats? I don't. When I first heard about AI, I thought to myself, don't we already have that now in humans? Not the I part, a lot of humans. Listen, when people say, what do you think about AI? And I say, didn't you see Terminator? What is that? Not Starlinks. Star something or other. Didn't you see Terminator? We've already seen what AI does, what can do. And the interesting thing is, with Terminator and Battlestar Galactica, we had a physical version of AI that was problematic. You had the Terminator, Schwarzenegger, and the other Terminators. With the version of AI we have right now, it's doing it through social media and messing with our perception of reality. So it's a different kind. We don't have a Terminator robot yet. But what is that? What is that? Let me look that up. Now I got to look it up. Hold on a second. I'm looking it up right now. Hold on one second. Skynet. Skynet, not Starlink. There you go. Yes, I was thinking Star. I couldn't figure out what it was. Star. No, it's Skynet. It was in Terminator. The Terminator was a documentary, especially the Skynet part. Look, we can see what AI is doing without the robot part. We've already seen it. You can't trust anything you have on the internet anymore. You can't trust news sources. You can't trust photographs. You can't trust videos. It's already distorting our sense of reality. When I grew up, I'll give you an example of a news event. I was a young kid when Kennedy was assassinated. There was no distortion of the Kennedy assassination in the news. It was reported as fact, what as we learned them, et cetera, et cetera. Now, since then, there may have been more going on there than what we were told originally, but the news was reported, for the most part, I mean, there's exceptions, was reported without bias. It didn't make any difference which side of the political spectrum you were on. It was just reported as fact news. Nowadays, you can't trust anything. Everybody has their slant on what they're reporting on. So I don't trust anything. That's why I always start and end my prompts with please and thank you. Hopefully that gives them pause before they nuke me. Yeah, well, I haven't done any prompts yet. I don't even know how that stuff works. I know this is prompt that's necessary. We don't need the robots. All AI has to do is manipulate us enough to do the harm ourselves. It's already happening with the kids. I understand. It's really already taken hold and it's in the infancy. So I don't trust anything. But let's worry about AI for Final Cut Pro. How about that? How can AI improve Final Cut Pro? Well, it can improve Final Cut Pro by allowing us to do text-based editing and text-based auto captions. That would be a phenomenal way. Isn't voice isolation, isn't that a form of machine learning? Machine learning is a subset of AI. It's like one little part of AI. So from what I understand, it's machine learning. They use voice isolation to isolate voices out of backgrounds. Now, DaVinci Resolve is more sophisticated. They can do voice isolation, background, and the ambiance of the room. 3 separate sliders. I'd like to see Final Cut Pro get that and Logic get that. It'd be phenomenal. Skynet. I love the Terminator series. I like that series, all those different ones. I even like the TV series of Terminator. Absolutely. And I liked, what's the other one I mentioned? Luma Fusion will have AI for background removal, but it will be on device so they don't steal your data. No, absolutely. There's no reason for an NLE to be stealing your data if they have any scruples. I don't trust CapCut now that I've heard about keystroke monitoring / recording and they want access to your contacts. What in the world? What reason could you need my contact list for? Have access? Nefarious reasons. BS. You're not getting it. CapCut is completely wiped off my machine. Once I thought about that, I said, I don't even want it on my machine. Get the heck out of here. I don't want you anywhere close to my machine. I don't care how many features you have. You're not getting access to my contacts. You're not getting access to record my keystrokes. I'm surprised more people haven't, maybe they have and I haven't seen them, haven't talked about that. I'm not sure where I learned about that from, but it ain't going to happen. By the way, not only can you get all the pro apps for $199 if you're a student or a teacher, you also get a 90-day free trial of Final Cut Pro. 90 days, 3 months free trial of Final Cut Pro. I use both Final Cut Pro and Adobe, so these integrations will be interesting to see on both platforms. Very, very cool. Now, Joe B, over there on X platform, do you use Adobe for work? Do you have a subscription to Adobe from work? Are you a teacher or a student? Colleges have Photoshop, and they might have After Effects. Photoshop for sure. It's ubiquitous in all the colleges in their software. So once you get Photoshop, you have all the other apps included in the subscription. So if you're in school and you're using Photoshop, it's different than if you're paying for it yourself and you can never stop paying for it. It's different. There you go. Yes, freelance editor and clients, supplies my Adobe subscription. See, that's different. If I was at work, but when you're no longer a freelance editor or you quit your job, I bet you quit the Adobe subscription. Maybe Apple will be announcing that every app from now on will be moving to a subscription-based model. Of course, you're just joking. Joking about that. Joe, he just supplies. Of course, I understand. When I'm reading something and I see an obvious typo or something, I'll just read what it's supposed to mean rather than the typo. Yes, he says. Yeah. So yeah, if you can bill the subscription out to your clients, or if you're for example, I was the post supervisor at the National Archives for 8.5 years. And I did some of the most, when I was down there, I did some of the most popular videos available. We had a theater and we had 100 events every year, all kinds of things. Usually politicians or book authors or something like that, TV stars sometimes. Dick Cavett was down there. I got to meet him. And most of the time, all the time, they just did straight videotaping of the stage. Maybe a little bit of switching back and forth. When there were special events, I would bring my own camera in. I would tape all kinds of other things besides just the presentation on the stage. I went above and beyond what the normal government video was. I went above and beyond. I haven't seen anybody do that down there since I left. It's just, oh, here we are at another event. Here we are with 3 cameras. Let me switch around 3 cameras, 2 cameras, 3 cameras. I went above and beyond that, which is the way I do things, especially if I have passion for it. But if they had Adobe products, but I certainly wouldn't. I didn't use them because I like using products that I can use at home. Sometimes I had to do work on weekends or in the evenings. I didn't want to stay in D.C. because it was over an hour commute back to my place, an hour and 15 minutes, something like that. I didn't want to stay down there and then have to travel. I want to get home, do the work, and then I was more comfortable. No one goes above and beyond anymore. Well, it's a combination of things. Number one is you have to have the idea. You have to have the creative idea to do it. That's one of the things. And the other thing is, just do what we have to do. You can imagine the government, right? Let's do what we have to do. Don't go above and beyond. You make us look bad. If I'm editing something, and I'm not saying every program, but there are some programs that are especially, I knew they would be better than just a normal program. And so I would bring my camera in to do extra filming. For example, Bryan Cranston was down there when the LBJ film came out. So he was down there. I got to meet him, but I filmed him on the red carpet, for example, because I knew he was coming in. I said, okay, he's coming in. I'm bringing my camera, and I'm going to film him on the red carpet and behind the scenes and talking to people. And I filmed him. When the 50th anniversary of the assassination of JFK, the local film crews in Washington wanted to come in and film. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. They wanted to come in and film all the JFK assassination memorabilia that the National Archives have. Okay, we have Oswald's rifle. When I say we, when I was down there, it was we. Oswald's rifle, 38 caliber pistol that he shot Officer Tippett with, the magic bullet. We have that. We have the Zapruder film. We have his wallet with his ID card. They wanted to come in and film all that on the 50th anniversary of JFK's assassination. Well, first off, it's not on display anywhere, and it probably never will be. We have it as part of a case. We have it as part of an ongoing court case. Not ongoing, but part of the government. So we have those things. The archivist at the time said, no, we're not going to let all these outside video people in to videotape this stuff. However, our AV crew will videotape all this stuff and give you access to the videotape, to the footage. So I got to videotape all that stuff. I got, videotape. I brought my camera. The archives had their camera, but I always brought a separate camera everywhere I went. My iPhone, or I had a small little HD cam that I used to carry everywhere. And I videotaped more than the archives did. Archives did stock stuff. Hold this up and show this. Hold this up and show that. I did a lot more than that. So I always went above and beyond. We live in such a fast time, there seems to be no time to be creative before the next big update is out with new features. Well, I can be creative with iMovie. So, you got to think up here first, but the creativity, and then you got to execute. But I understand what you're saying. Sorry for my English. I don't agree with this. Auto captions is for YouTubers. I use Final Cut FCP on TV, and sometimes this function saved me time, personal integration format, etc. No, I agree with that. But like I said, it's National Archives. We had to have captions in all our videos. I don't want Final Cut Pro on iPad for now, but iPhone first with cam, record, stream, edit with integration of motion models, FTP and send XML and rushes to Final Cut Pro desktop. Sorry if this is off topic. So here's one of the things about DaVinci Resolve, another thing that I like. I love the way they integrate all of their apps across tabs on the main interface. None of this exporting XML, importing XML. Oh, no, we can't import that version of XML. You got to get a different version of XML. Oh, there's errors because you used the wrong version of XML. That seems so archaic. With DaVinci Resolve, you have a cut page tab, you have an edit page tab, you have a Fairlight audio sophisticated mixer routing tab, you have a Fusion tab, you have a export tab, and you just click on one tab and the other tab and the other tab and the other tab. You don't have to import and export XML. It seems so archaic nowadays. I would love Final Cut Pro 10.7.5, 10.8, Final Cut Pro 11 to be incorporated. You would have Motion, Compressor, Logic Pro, and Final Cut Pro in individual tabs. You don't have to export XML from Final Cut Pro into Logic Pro. Logic Pro has an old version of XML. You can't export Final Cut Pro XML from Logic Pro back to Final Cut Pro because Logic only cares about the audio. They don't care about the video. It just seems so archaic. In its day, it was okay, but nowadays, no. It's why I really like Luma Fusion, because we have time to be creative in ways not thought out before until they come out with new features and tools. How many people use Final Cut on iPad? Never heard one person after the introduction here. So Final Cut for iPad is very cool because it's an entry level. It's like a Trojan horse way of getting into Final Cut Pro. Don't you think that young people have a tendency to use an iPad and iPhone rather than a Mac? I think I've seen that with the young people. They don't even own a Macintosh. They just own an iPad and an iPhone. And therefore, why not have a version of Final Cut that runs on the iPad? Makes complete sense. I don't think it sells many iPads, but maybe a new version on Tuesday will help sell a few iPads? We'll have to see. Tuesday's coming up fast. I'm excited. 10 o'clock Tuesday morning. 10 o'clock Tuesday morning. Don't forget, Luma Fusion Luma Fusion is on sale for $19. It's great for $29. It's normal price. 30% off through Monday. Buy it. I don't care if you plan on using it or not. Just buy it. $20. It's well worth having. Runs on the iPad, the iPhone, Chromebooks, Android devices, and the Macintosh. The iPad version runs on a Macintosh. I would expect Final Cut on the iPad is in the tens of thousands of users, where Final Cut Pro on the Mac is 5 million. I'm just going to say 5 million users. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. We didn't have any balloons yet this morning. This is for all the listeners out there. Happy birthdays to whoever has birthdays or celebrations, whatever. This is a good point. I know a YouTuber for Switzerland with roughly 85,000 subscribers who's using the iPad version of Final Cut Pro due to you can write with the pencil option. Very cool. Very, very cool. Now, I have to look into what Luma Fusion does. I think you can write on the screen on Luma Fusion as well. So I will be, if I get an iPad Pro, which, I probably will. I'm thinking they're not going to update the Mac Pro, the MacBook Pro until later this year or beginning of next year. And I have an iPad Air 2. That's how old my iPad is. I don't use it for much for Luma Fusion, and I read books at night when I'm in bed on my iPad. And I watch movies on the airplane. I download a whole series of movies to pass the time on an airplane. So I'm thinking if I can get a good iPad Pro for like $2,000 or less, and then I get a pencil, the iPad, the new pencil, I'll probably get that. That will tie me over for another 6 months or a year before I look at updating my MacBook Pro. I really don't need to update my MacBook Pro. This one runs fine. It does everything I like. I'm looking at the 5th gen iPad Air just to play with Final Cut Pro and iPad. Brett, buy Luma Fusion. It's $19 right now until Monday. I'm telling you, buy Luma Fusion. It has features that I wish Final Cut Pro and the Mac had. It's $20. 3 or 4 coffees, and it's perpetual license. Perpetual license. Why would you do Final Cut Pro on the iPad? Does it support FCP motion templates? No, but either does Final Cut on the iPad. Final Cut on the iPad doesn't use motion, doesn't use plugins for Final Cut, which is all the plugins that doesn't use it either. So what difference does that make? But I'm just saying, for $20, come on. It's got great features. Now you have to spend a little bit of time. It's a little bit different than Final Cut. I mean, it's very similar to Final Cut. It's very similar to Final Cut, but it's got a lot of great features that Final Cut doesn't have. I used an iPad, but broke the screen inside my backpack. Somehow the protection failed. I keep working on my MacBook M2 Pro. That works great. Yeah, there you go. So I can't recommend it. Listen, when $20, usually it goes on sale twice a year, Christmas time, Black Friday, and around NAB. Well, they didn't make it for NAB this time. They did it after NAB, but I'm suspicious that they know something. They didn't tell me this. They didn't say anything. I'm suspicious that they know a new version of Final Cut for iPad's coming out on Tuesday. That's why their sale stops on Monday for $19. As a powered Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro user, Final Cut Pro, I really hope to stay inside the Apple Pro apps, absolutely. But if I need full sound post features, either way, they add it to Logic or Final Cut. Don't want to be jumping to Pro Tools or now to DaVinci. I understand that, but everybody who does professional films in Hollywood jumps to Pro Tools. Everybody jumps to Pro Tools for their audio mixes. They don't, if they edit in Final Cut Pro, if they edit in Avid, if they edit in Premiere, they all take their audio to a professional DAW like Pro Tools. All of them do. Color correction. If they edit in Premiere, or they edit in Final Cut, or they edit in Avid, they still use DaVinci Resolve for color correction. These are standards. I'm talking about high-end Hollywood movies. So if you don't want to, that's fine, and I understand that. But I showed you what the advanced voice isolation in DaVinci Resolve has. If the one slider in Final Cut doesn't do it for you, I can go in DaVinci Resolve my audio, and I have 3 sliders: voice isolation, background, and ambiance. And I can choose any of those 3 that I want. I can boost the voice, I can cut the background completely out, noise, but if I wanted a bit of realistic ambiance of the room I was in, I can dial that back in. Can't do that in Final Cut. You can't do that in Final Cut. So I understand the idea of I'm going to stay in Final Cut Pro. I want to stay in the Pro apps. I understand that. But you can't even successfully export from Final Cut to Logic back and forth. Doesn't work. Final Cut XML and Logic is a couple of versions behind Final Cut because Logic doesn't care about the video. All they care about is the audio. So you can't go back and forth between Logic and Final Cut. You can go from Final Cut to Logic, but you got to finish your audio in Logic, and you can export your video back to Final Cut, but you can't do XML back and forth. It's very, very clunky way of doing things in 2024. It's very, very clunky. Final Cut Pro XML was good in its day. It's not anymore. It's too clunky. Now, you have to go from Final Cut to DaVinci Resolve, I understand. You don't have to do it for every time, but you do it some of the times. You don't have to go from Final Cut to DaVinci or whatever all the time, but you have to do it some of the times. I'm just saying, high-end Hollywood movies, everybody mixes in Pro Tools. It's a standard and it works. If I buy a new iPad, I would choose one with enough internal storage and USB-C, but considering the price, I would still prefer MacBook Pro. I agree. All the touch editing is not working for me, keyboard, mouse work, but I thought you can use a keyboard with the iPad Pro. Now, I understand that you don't want to do all that stuff with touch, but you can use a keyboard and mouse with an iPad Pro, and you can do shortcuts. I think you can do shortcuts with Luma Fusion. I think so. Exactly. I hope all that changes soon for us Pro Apps users. I would like, no, this is another X user. I would like for Final Cut Pro to adopt what DaVinci Resolve has with tabs. Go from Motion to Compressor to Logic to Final Cut on tabs, not export XML. Seems so clunky and old-fashioned in 2024. I'm not saying that they will. I'm just saying that I think it's time for a change. Now, look, 2 birds out there. So this is our backyard here at Final Cut TV and Coffee. We're here every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. This is our backyard. You can see it's very, very green. Everything is green, green, green. Pollen everywhere. Oak pollen for me. When I went to NAB, I came back Matter of fact, let's just do this. Let me see what I have here. There is Grant Petty and me at NAB. What else do we have? Here is the the loop. Goes from Central to West Hall. Elon Musk Tunnel. LBC loop. LBC loop. So this is a tunnel that connects to Central and West Hall. It'd take about up to 25 minutes or whatever to walk because of the way it is. And this takes 2 minutes. Very, very efficient.
What's the shortest one? Just let the drivers know you want to go to West, and they'll take you.
You can go on this side and go to West, or they'll circle around.
Yep.
I should be walking at
This is the tunnel itself.
so I can
Very, very
break
cool.
down the calories from all the delicious food you're getting here.
Mm-hmm.
What model is this one? Tesla.
Let's see what else we got here. Here's a little bit of that frame IO I told you about. Emory.
See, these are the metadata fields. So you can now add any metadata fields you want to an asset. So
Okay.
If I come in here to fields, you can see that, like, let's say, for that, exactly what I was just talking about. We're gonna create a new field. So this doesn't exist.
So that's Emory. What else do we have? Here is me saying goodbye. I remembered to do that this year. Well, before I do that, let me just, here is somebody, here's my friend Chuck Braverman. I get to talk to him.
Oh, I know something I saw I can talk about.
You know what?
Something I want to talk about.
Okay. We can talk about whatever we want. At NAB, what,
you want me to
at
get
the
over
end,
here so
we'll
you can-
plug your document, your show.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. And then here is one more. This is somebody from the Final Cut Pro team that I saw walking outside. Steve Bays. I did get to meet you this time.
I know. I didn't really have a place to hang out. I'm just basically walking.
Well, there's no Final Cut Pro news, that's why. There's no Final Cut Pro centric.
I'm going to have to talk to those guys.
No, you do that. And here is me saying goodbye from NAB. Here we are, NAB 2024. Tuesday, I'm getting ready to head back to the East Coast. Another year of attending NAB. Lots of people here this year. I'll be surprised if it's not 65, 75,000 people attendees this year. We had some good events. Black Magic, of course, was the main attraction, as they have been for a long time. I got to talk to Grant Petty for 5 minutes. Will I come back in 2025? We'll have to see how that goes next year. We'll have to see how that goes next year. That's exactly right. Every year is different. So next year, I'll probably make reservations, but we'll have to see, make sure sponsorship's in place and stuff, because it's very expensive. It costs a couple $1,000s for me to go there, and hotel, airfare, parking. My parking at the airport is like $60, just, while my vehicle's parked there. So food, of course, food. But this last time there were like 15 different events, and I went to maybe 5 out of the 15. You get up in the morning, you get started, you get breakfast, you get started. By the afternoon, I start running out of energy, and I go back to the hotel, and then I want to rest up for night events is what happens. So Tuesday morning, 10 a.m., the Apple event. We have that. Let me see, where is that? Countdown. We have the Apple event. There's Tim Cook saying one more thing. We have the Apple Pencil, which you can see right in the graphic. The Apple Pencil is right there. They're usually not that blatant. We have Tim Cook saying one more thing. Well, we know there's going to be iPads. Okay, that's not a surprise. What's going to be a surprise is this. This will be a surprise. If you can, look over here underneath of Tim's arm. What is that underneath of Tim's arm over there? Something's hiding behind Tim. He's hiding it. But do we know what's happening there for sure? No. Would I bet on it? I'll bet a coffee. I'm not going to bet anything more than a coffee. Okay. Oh, yes, please. Tab with audio tab. Absolutely. Some apps are making it possible for external storage for editing, so you don't need to buy the model with the most space. Absolutely correct. The iPhone 15 Pro Max has a dedicated USB controller chip. This is the first phone to have that. And that's why Luma Fusion can edit off of one of these little teeny 4 terabyte SSD. Plug it in, Luma Fusion can edit off this. The iPhone, Final Cut cannot edit off, as far as I know, directly off of the iPad connected SSD. May have changed. I'm not keeping up with all the changes, but this has a dedicated USB controller, so I expect the iPad Pro to be even more advanced with connectivity to SSDs. I would love to see 2 Thunderbolt ports on the iPad Pro. I would love that. Connect one to SSD, the other one for charging or Pro Audio or whatever. But so I'm still leaning to getting the new iPad Pro. I haven't bought one for years and years and years. I figured I'll spend $2,000 on a new iPad Pro. I agree with you. I don't need the most storage. So I would probably get the iPad Pro with 1 terabyte SSD. That'd be plenty. That'd be plenty because I have 4 terabyte SSDs I can, do stuff on. I can store stuff on. And it's getting more advanced and more advanced, but I'd love to have 2 Thunderbolt ports rather than just one. Thunderbolt /USB. I think the iPads are actually Thunderbolt ports. This is USB 3 or 4. 3 is USB 4. I'm not sure what it is. This is USB, but I think I've been told that the iPads actually have Thunderbolt ports, which are faster. Thunderbolt is better than USB. So, is anybody else going to be watching Tuesday? Is anybody else going to be watching on Tuesday? Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. You have to remember that. Go over there and subscribe. And you'll be notified. We'll be going live on Tuesday at 12 noon, 1 o'clock Eastern time, something like that. And we'll discuss what happened at the Mac event. Especially if there's anything Final Cut Pro related. I'm telling you, I expect 10.7.2 to be coming out Tuesday. All right, everyone. I appreciate each and every one of you. Absolutely. Here you go. Happy balloons. Final Cut Pro team. Let me just do that again. There we go. There we go. Got to have the applause in there. Final Cut Pro team. And everything that they do, even though it's not as fast as we want, we still appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. Brett says he'll be watching. Absolutely. Brett is the maker of the fine plugins over there at Brett FX. He has cool plugins over there. Absolutely. I met him at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, which I anticipate is going to be in November again this year. We'll have to see how that goes, but they have to be making plans right now. But of course, the biggest problem is they have to coordinate with Apple. So future media conferences has to reserve a hotel. They have to reserve rooms in the hotel for presentations, et cetera, but they can't do anything until they get the word from Apple when Apple's going to be available. And they probably should be doing it now, not in June, July, and August when the hotels are already booked up. I think that's what happened last year, why we didn't go back to the Juniper. The Juniper was a perfect hotel. All right, everybody, have a great day and weekend. I'm trying to get OBS going more and proper this weekend and trying to integrate more AI into my daily life for productivity. Currently doing this in, I'm not sure what that is. Another great show. Thank you very much. Spread the word. So we got 60 people watching right now. 60 people are watching over there around the world. Final Cut TV and Coffee. Make sure you subscribe, like over there at Final Cut TV. No, I'm sorry. Richard Taylor TV over there on YouTube. See you on the next show. Thank you very much. I'm going to get off here. It is 1 hour. We've been on for 3 hours and 12 minutes so far. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. Applause to the Final Cut Pro team and applause to all the watchers. You come back every Saturday. Pay attention on Tuesday. I'm probably going to be back at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. Just to recap the Final Cut Pro, I wish it was the Final Cut Pro event. Just to recap the Apple event. Thank you, Final Cut Pro team. Thank you for everybody for watching. Pay attention. Subscribe over there at YouTube. Any questions before we leave? Any more comments about the Apple event? Let's go over here one more time. There's Tim Cook saying one more thing. Now that's me saying Tim Cook saying one more thing. That's not Tim Cook saying that. I mean, that would be nice. It's not a Final Cut Pro event. Okay, we know that. They don't do Final Cut Pro events except for the Creative Summit. It's Tim. I'm just saying one more thing is a catchphrase that they use. Steve Jobs started it. And hiding underneath his left arm is, what is that over there? What is that over there? Under his left arm? Well, I can't quite see what that is. We'll have to see. I think we're going to see Final Cut Pro 10.7.2 on Tuesday. I've been saying it for months. All right, everybody, I'm going to get out of here one more time. Thank you very much for showing up, and I'll see you Tuesday, if not before. Let's hope Final Cut Pro 10.7.2 with new features on Tuesday. Let's hope. Talk to everybody later.